10,000 elite rescuers gathered for an incredibly brutal and dangerous challenge designed to test their physical power, endurance, and ability to cooperate. Back then, Chumo did not understand the true gravity of his situation, failing to sense the creeping dread or the danger lurking ahead. He was the only regular person chosen for this terrifying, historic mission, surrounded by 9,999 other legends. Elite cultivators, each possessing incredible spiritual energy and combat experience. Together, they faced horrific beasts looming from the shadows, radiating unmatched malice. Their overwhelming pressure forced everyone to prepare for a deadly, endless clash. Exactly 365 days remained before the gods would ascend. This brutal countdown relentlessly ticked toward the day that would change everything. Alter the fate of humanity. A cold, unforgiving reality had suddenly crashed down on Chumo, forcing him to completely reassess his fragile human limits. And the terrifying road ahead, yet by the 30th day of training, he could shatter stars with a single punch, revealing a truly godlike strength that stunned even veteran warriors, forcing them to acknowledge his rise. Sudden commotion and screams soon echoed from the hospital ward, reverberating through the cold corridors, filling the air with an uneasy dread. Standing in the way, Chumo desperately urged the heavily armed thugs to leave his sister's room, shielding her from the terrifying confrontation. Even while panicking inside, Chumo held firm. Then Boss Shu commanded his men to lower their weapons and act like civilized human beings to restore order. In the room, ever since the tragic death of their parents, Chumo had protected his sister, but she never got to enjoy life. Before falling deathly ill, leaving him in total despair and helplessness. His company paid her bills, and in return, Chumo promised he would fully repay the massive debt out of immense personal gratitude. But the greedy boss constantly reminded him of the favor, claiming he was the one who made him finance head in the first place, demanding endless loyalty. But as it turned out, there was a catch. Chumo had only agreed to the harsh terms to save his sister. And once she was safe, he resigned to reclaim his freedom. Now the furious boss openly threatened him, aiming his venom directly at Chumo's innocent sister, exploiting his worst fears to force him back into submission. But Chumo shouted back in fury, warning the goons that he would never let anyone harm his sister, his eyes blazing with protective rage. Unfazed by his anger, the boss laid out a grim demand, declaring that someone had to answer for the ruined amusement park project. He even suggested suicide as the only way to satisfy the debt. But there was another option: return to work and fully restore the company's ruined reputation, and only then would her medical expenses be prepaid for years, ensuring she could receive care without any worry. The cold-hearted manager ordered him to think it over and bring back his final decision tomorrow, leaving him with an agonizing night of reflection. As the morning sun rose, the critical day had finally arrived. Golden sunlight washes over the city, calling everyone to wake up and start their morning. Meanwhile, our hero strides confidently through the corporate office corridors. His sharp gaze radiates pure, absolute focus. He stands completely ready for any tough challenge. She freezes completely, her face twists in absolute, sheer shock. Confused by his sudden change, Zio Men knows she must act. She decides to tell her boss the entire truth right away. Sharing this crucial news is absolutely vital for them. But his unpredictable, dark mood makes him highly dangerous right now. Still, she takes a deep breath and confesses her hidden feelings. Confessing that she has loved him for years, she hopes for his love in return. Her eyes plead for him to accept her heartfelt sincerity. Chumo sighs and softly apologizes, keeping his heavy emotions under control. He tells her he simply cannot think about romance right now. Accepting this, she asks him to close his eyes for a moment. She wants to give him one last, tender farewell gift. Quietly, she whispers that once he leaves, she will take all the blame. Her voice trembles with fear, knowing she will be the scapegoat for their failed project. Fear grips her completely as she contemplates her ruined future. Can you believe this? She actually reaches out and shoves her boss. It is a ruthless, defensive move to save her own skin. Chumo is completely stunned. He never expected this sudden betrayal. He never expected such a bold, dangerous action from his quiet assistant. The terrifying shift forces him to rethink everything in a split second. Reacting on instinct, Chumo grabs her arm to pull her back. Desperately, he tries to shield her from the incoming fall. If she truly wanted to live, she would have pulled him to safety. This proves her move was nothing but a final, desperate act of terror. But she loses her footing and plunges over the edge after him. Total panic strikes. Now they are both tumbling through the open air. Mid-fall, a bizarre glowing door materializes right in front of him. It sucks Chumo inside, trapping him in a brand new danger zone. Realizing this is her only escape route, Zio Men lunges forward. She ignores the sheer danger and dives headfirst after him. But right before she can cross the threshold, the gateway slams shut. Stranded outside on her own, she is completely cut off from him. Down on the crowded street, a massive, terrified commotion erupts among the pedestrians. They watch in absolute horror as a body hits the pavement. Deafening sirens soon begin to echo through the streets. Police cars and ambulances rush toward the tragic, chaotic scene. Meanwhile, Chumo picks himself up and inspects his body. Incredibly, he survived the fall from the skyscraper without a single scratch. He feels a rush of intense relief, completely baffled by his luck. Everything looks normal, yet something feels deeply, terribly wrong. The entire city is dead silent, and there is not a single soul in sight. He stood amidst his familiar surroundings as the system announced the trial was finally about to begin. This marked a brutal, deadly phase that would test the absolute limits of every single participant. The young man was shaken by an eerie voice echoing out of nowhere, cutting through the emptiness, creating an eerie sense of danger that forced him to sharpen all his senses. Up ahead, a stranger screamed for him to get out of the way. Her frantic warning filled him with panic, forcing him to react instantly to the threat. She was incredibly nimble, darting forward with absolute confidence, showing total mastery over the battlefield. Her dagger gleamed brightly under the light, its razor-sharp edge looking ready to slice through anything. She was lethal. Then a white beast materialized before her, massive and terrifying. Its aura filled the room with absolute dread. In an instant, the entire area around them dissolved into chaos, combining screams and flashing steel into a violent, tangled mess of threats. Everyone was in extreme danger. The young man watched in silence, wondering how a human could wield such insane power. It was terrifying yet beautiful. On her end, the girl knew only a chosen few could ever access this secret world, fully conscious of her elite status and the sheer danger of their situation. So how a regular guy with zero spiritual energy had ended up here was a massive mystery, sparking immediate suspicion about his true identity. But when he desperately asked how to escape this bizarre world, she gave him some cold, hard truth. It was impossible. He had to survive until the mission ended. Trying to leave now would be suicide. Young wanted to protect him, but her ally quickly shut her down. This was no charity event. The rules here were harsh and unforgiving. Even for seasoned cultivators, this test was a straight-up death trap. If she insisted on carrying dead weight, she would have to ditch the party and fend for herself. Young froze, unable to believe her leader would abandon this helpless kid as monster bait, sparking instant rage within her. Tong turned to talk to him, but Chumo cut her off right away. He did not want to be a burden. Taking charge of his own fate, Chumo told her to focus on surviving. He promised he would get out of this alive no matter what. His sheer resolve was burning bright. He had to survive. His sick sister was still waiting for him back in a hospital bed. That thought gave him limitless strength to fight. Meanwhile, the smug team leader watched him with a cruel, malicious smirk. He eagerly waited to see the kid's face plunge into total, hopeless despair. He loved playing God, exerting absolute psychological pressure on everyone. Then in a flash, the group completely vanished from sight, leaving behind a stunned, empty silence. He barely had time to register what happened before finding himself completely alone. Gripping the spare sword they left behind, he realized he had absolutely no idea how to fight. Yet, the heavy burden settled in. Just then, a system chime announced his official entry into the secret world, offering massive rewards for those who survive. To push through the trials and unleash their ultimate potential, Chumo stared at the floating light screen and the weird sounds coming from it, trying to figure out what they actually meant in this completely bizarre and new world. But he presses the button anyway, hoping for some kind of reward. Even with his doubts, he is ready to take a gamble on this possible win. And just like that, he gets the power of a 1,000-year-old Demon, a wild, massive energy floods his body, opening up entirely new tactics for survival. As the raw power courses through his veins, Chumo can barely process it. He stands there in complete awe as all his exhaustion simply melts away, replaced by a sudden surge of strength. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a massive invasion of interdimensional beasts is suddenly announced to the public, sparking instant panic and mass chaos everywhere. Chosen cultivators, acting as humanity's saviors, are sent to fight massive monsters. Every single clash is being streamed live to millions of terrified viewers. If these trials fail, the alien beasts will break through to Earth and completely wipe out what's left of human civilization. Right now, normal people are totally confused, desperately trying to figure out where those bizarre, heavy sounds are actually coming from. A weird noise shattering the peace and leaving everyone on edge. Suddenly, a broadcast app called the Secret World Force downloads onto every single phone, letting everyone watch the madness beyond our reality. Most folks are just plain curious to see what happens next. Plus, they feel safe since they assume the saviors will be the ones taking all the hits first on this suicide mission. So, as soon as they open the app, a message pops up welcoming them to the official live stream of this mysterious, hidden world. This pocket dimension sits right between our world and the monster realm, built by old cultivators as a shield to block the oncoming invasion. If our chosen fighters can actually pull off a win here, Earth gets its lost spiritual energy back, kicking off a new cultivation era, regaining its long-lost strength. And get this, virtual host Lilio Zhang is brought on as the main commentator for the Secret World broadcast, analyzing the action for everyone watching globally, standing right by her side are Elder G and Miss Shuang, ready to drop some expert insights before this massive, high-stakes event officially kickstarts. Elder G reassures everyone that the martial sects are fully prepared. Even though these monsters are insanely strong, the new generation won't back down from this epic fight. Miss Shuang chimed in, saying his words are just the motivation everyone needs before heading straight into this incredibly dangerous, life-or-death conflict. The broadcast even has a live interactive reward system where viewers earn special stream coins daily just by watching. They can use these to root for their favorite savior. Soon, Lilio drops a major recommendation on a standout player to watch closely, hyping up his insane skill potential for the coming matches. All eyes focus on the broadcast room as the first rescuer is summoned to action. The live broadcast of this dangerous battle is running, but the host immediately trips up. Their own claims fall flat the second a beast corners one of the players. Instead of a fight, the monster is instantly vaporized, sparking massive doubt. Every single prediction is totally ruined. Suddenly, the chat explodes. Furious viewers flood the chat with harsh, highly critical comments. They are absolutely tearing the live stream apart with pure sarcasm. Panicking, the host quickly tells everyone to switch over to a different stream. Maybe they can actually watch these brave rescuers survive in some much safer, more successful battles. But in this new room, a terrified rescuer is desperately begging for his life. He is completely losing his mind, absolutely terrified of getting ripped apart by these vicious monsters. The panicked network scrambles to switch channels to find a much more comforting, positive-running broadcast. Anything for hope, just a tiny glimmer in this mess. Ms. Shuang bows. She deeply apologizes to the disappointed viewers. The live stream failed. It did not deliver at all. But the man senses a massive red flag. This trial is far too brutal. This rookie trial was never supposed to push these helpless rescuers into such a brutal death trap. Suddenly, system alerts flash. The enemies are turning up the heat. The overall mission difficulty has just spiked through the roof. For the first time in the history of the secret trials, danger has reached its absolute maximum limit. The Elder explains that letting the beast live only makes it stronger. Right now, its power easily matches thousands of years of cultivation. Even elite warriors cannot stand against this growing threat. The host warns the audience to listen closely to Elder G. His tactical advice could easily save lives right now. With the fate of Earth on the line, these rescuers are fighting desperately. Viewers must urgently donate coins of fate to help them. Chumo does not care at all about the surrounding madness. He calmly eats his ramen as if monsters are not even real. Watch closely, the chat instantly decides this guy is on a picnic. They crack jokes about his complete and total lack of fear. Talk about a contrast, heroes are dying in other rooms. Jumo is just sitting there enjoying a quiet, perfectly peaceful lunch. The elder immediately realizes Jumo is just an ordinary mortal. He cannot fathom how the legendary secret world chose this weakling to stand alongside powerhouse cultivators. The man's words leave the watching crowd completely and utterly speechless. A massive wave of doubt erupts across the entire stream. They wonder if the secret world has completely lost its mind. Viewers are convinced that any monster would wipe Jumo out instantly. His absolute calmness makes zero sense to anyone watching. Suddenly, the viewer count goes completely through the roof. Everyone begins placing bets on exactly how many minutes this weak mortal is going to stay alive. But right on cue, a dark presence creeps into the room. An enemy has arrived, sending the tension straight to maximum. Jumo spots the creature, and the crowd holds its collective breath. No movement, he just stood there, studying the beast with intense eyes. Unshaken, meanwhile, the terrified girl beside him trembled in utter horror. She begged the elder to save the poor guy and end this nightmare. But the elder only offered a grim, terrifying explanation about this secret dimension. Ancient cultivators forged it eons ago, even they lost control over it. Now it was already far too late, there was no turning back. The kid would not survive 3 seconds against a 100-year-old monster. Jai analyzed the beast, 6 eyes, a massive hulking frame. It was colossal, but having unlocked this insane surge of new power. Our main character was still anxious, trying to comprehend his new level. He was leagues above his old self. Suddenly, the beast lunged at him. Its attacks felt sluggish. He easily ducked every strike flying his way. Pure ease across from him, the giant beast grew highly irritated. It could not comprehend why this weak human was still standing. The monster taunted him, trying to bait a sloppy mistake. Chumo stayed calm. He refused to fall for it. He knew his strategy. Right then, he decided to test a wild hunch. He braced himself, one strike that could flip the entire battle. Yuding had left him a special sword. This was his chance to deal a heavy blow and turn things around. He swung a perfect clean hit right on the target. The strike connected, proving his terrifying growth, but something felt very off. The beast never expected such a fast, decisive counter from him. It lost focus, yet the real shock was about to hit. His direct attack dealt absolutely zero damage. He was stunned. Wait, here is the catch. Just as Chumo suspected, it was a trap. The monster had baited him, wanting his own attack power to bounce back. A cunning defense, luckily because he had used a sword. The deflected impact was heavily dampened, saving him from any fatal injury. The chat exploded, comments flooded in as the audience lost their minds. They were furious at the elder for feeding them garbage, fake information. They realized the kid was completely doomed. His blade had literally snapped in half against the monster's iron skin. Meanwhile, the stream host watched in shock as Chumo kept dodging. He slipped past every single blow with unbelievable reflexes and agility. Even the young lady began to hope maybe he could actually win. Watching his precise, fearless movements, she was totally captivated. Elder G grudgingly admitted he had vastly underestimated this kid. He believed Chumo was secretly a master martial artist back on Earth. It was agonizing to watch, a mortal fighting a god. The gap was massive, yet Chumo kept dancing through the storm. Still, a single hit would end him. The tension was suffocating. Our hero knew the stakes. He was walking on a razor's edge. One mistake meant death. He was completely cornered now. Dodging was no longer an option. Every move had to be perfect. Could end up being totally fatal. He had to fake an attack and gamble. He wanted to push the beast back, praying this desperate plan worked. Confusion hit the monster, giving Chumo his ultimate chance. He quickly slipped away from that hopeless, suffocating dead end. Reaching a better position, he raised his hand to summon a light. The blinding flash lit up the area, catching everyone's attention instantly. The terrifying beast should have backed off, but it stayed. It stood its ground stubbornly, displaying some insane resilience. Then the massive creature standing before him suddenly vanished. It left behind nothing but dead silence and complete shock. The crowd couldn't believe an ordinary guy pulled this off. He had totally crushed a massive beast, leaving everyone absolutely speechless. Right away, people started throwing coins to support him. They wanted to thank him for his pure courage and incredible battle skills. In the end, they tossed over 5,000 coins as a massive reward. They truly respected his heroic achievement, but he was just confused. Chumo stood there, trying to make sense of the situation. A strange system screen had suddenly popped up right before his eyes. This new feature boosted his overall power by a massive margin. Still, he felt no different and trusted his own regular abilities. His training score had already climbed to 10,050 points, proving his insane growth. Meanwhile, things got wild back in the real world. Shocked voices echoed through the office as staff stared at their screens. They watched the impossible unfold and immediately rushed to Boss Shu. They reported that their former employee, Chumo, was suddenly live on television. The broadcast was streaming live from a mysterious and highly classified world. In this hidden zone, Chumo had been chosen as a special rescuer. The news shocked everyone, but how did they get this intel? It turns out Xia Xian had leaked the entire plan to them. They figured if she died, they could easily blame her for everything. Now they planned to cover all of Chumo's sister's bills to make peace. They hoped this would win back his trust during this hard time. But Chumo wasn't about to play nice with them so easily. He held a lot of resentment and doubted their sudden change of heart. The manager quickly explained that this was strictly business for the elite. Having a cultivator mother gave Chumo a massive advantage in their world. Her status opened up endless doors and priceless opportunities. The boss could easily get someone to keep Chumo under control. They wanted to ensure he wouldn't cause any trouble for the company. Meanwhile, the TV host reported that quite a bit of time had passed. Ever since the hidden world opened, the rescuers had been dominating. They showed off incredible skills, keeping millions of viewers totally hooked. The host noticed Elder G's commentary on Chumo was bringing massive ratings. She praised his sharp analysis, highlighting just how crucial his voice was. But the elder bluntly replied that he was in no mood for praise. He had zero interest in telling jokes or joining some pretty pointless chatter. That idle talk would only undermine the absolute gravity of their critical situation. Ever since those century-old monsters appeared, things had gotten progressively worse. The trials kept getting harder, forcing survivors to find completely new strategies. They desperately needed more strength to survive. The host offered her own perspective. She explained that these brave rescuers were fighting hard for their own lives. Everyone needed to believe in them and hope their courage would hold. They decided to check on Chumo again to make sure he was fine. They needed to ensure he had not suffered any major injuries yet. But finding him fast asleep, they were completely shocked by his utter calmness. Some onlookers actually laughed, never expecting such a relaxed reaction after intense danger. Angry viewers felt completely ripped off for spending their valuable coins on him. He was just resting, showing absolutely zero action on the live broadcast. Honestly, who can blame them for switching streams to find some actual action? They wanted to see more exciting survivors who could deliver some real hype. Chumo was not a cultivator, so nobody expected anything spectacular from him. His simple moves remained entirely predictable to everyone watching the live stream. The elder strongly agreed with Leo Lian, seeing Chumo as a mere mortal. Nobody could expect extraordinary abilities or heroic feats from him. Especially in these tough trials, with the current player situation looking pretty dismal. They quickly clicked over to Bangjan's stream, hoping for some high-octane action. His viewers cheered, wishing him luck. They flooded the chat with supportive messages and donated coins to boost him. Suddenly, a truly terrifying monster appeared directly in front of him. The massive beast loomed, filling the entire battlefield with absolute dread. Everyone watching trembled in fear, but the player did not back down. With swift attacks, Bangjan easily dealt with the threat, using incredible agility. His brilliant combat strategy deeply impressed everyone watching the live stream. But wait, just when victory seems guaranteed, the entire screen goes pitch black. Thick smoke completely filled the screen, creating an atmosphere of absolute chaos. His followers panicked, terrified for him. They prayed that their favorite fighter would walk out of this alive. The elder realized they were facing a 300-year-old monster. Its colossal aura and raw power completely exceeded all prior expectations. This forced him to assess the terrifying threat with extreme caution. He explained that only elite disciples from the 4 major sects ever survived. Bai was just an inexperienced trainee with absolutely zero combat experience. Confronting an opponent like this was basically a straight ticket to suicide. The monster was so powerful that one tiny mistake would cost his life. Even the young fighter felt completely disheartened by the beast's pressure. He knew his current skills were far inferior to this colossal power. There was absolutely no chance of making it out of this easily. And yet he wanted to face a worthy foe to show his strength. He needed to test his absolute limits in a real battle of survival. Watching this, the spectators spammed the chat, claiming the elder was totally wrong. They had never listened to him, believing he simply exaggerated the danger, but now everyone stared at Bangjan's room with bated breath, desperate not to miss even a single tiny detail of what might actually happen in this critical moment. Suddenly, the commentators spotted a figure emerging from the dust and strained to identify exactly who was stepping out through the extremely thick clouds of rising smoke now. Then Chumo materialized behind him so suddenly and silently that nobody registered it, his sudden presence completely shifting the heavy tension. The stunned onlookers could barely believe their eyes. Just a moment ago, they refused to even look at him, but now the young man stood right at the center of the action, changing everyone's minds. Calmly assessing the entire chaotic battle scene, he wondered if the fighter actually needed help against this deadly foe. He weighed the risks of stepping into the clash himself. But the swordsman snapped back, "Stay right there, and do not move a single inch," because he could easily handle this deadly opponent on his own, rejecting any outside help. With absolute confidence, the swordsman raised his blade, aiming it straight at the beast while tensing up for one final, devastating blow. He executed a classic kendo technique, unleashing a strike packed with an absolute, incredibly explosive power. A blinding flash of energy lit up the entire area. In an instant, the entire swarm of monsters crumpled completely under his overwhelming and devastating might. They were cut down in seconds, completely wiped out without mercy. The crowd watched in absolute shock, unable to believe what just happened. With one swing, he decapitated a 300-year-old monster. This display of unmatched skill gained Menjun a wave of new supporters who were instantly won over by his courage. Suddenly, the beast's head began to regenerate. This shocking sight forced the onlookers to realize the battle was ongoing. The fight was clearly not over, because this specific creature possessed an insane ability to instantly regenerate, repairing its mangled body in the blink of an eye. Even worse, its spiritual energy was rapidly multiplying, making it far more dangerous with every passing second as power surged within. Defeating a terrifying, self-healing opponent like this seemed almost entirely impossible for any fighter now. Speed, strength, and rapid healing made any attack completely useless. Still, Menjin refused to back down and prepared his next move. He prepared to strike again, channeling every ounce of focus into his blade. This next blow had to end it completely. Total chaos filled the battlefield, and nobody knew who would survive. The viewers could only watch the screen with held breath. Meanwhile, Chumo watched the spectacular clash unfold with an incredibly quiet and highly satisfied grin. Seeing this live was way better than any television broadcast. Back in the extremely dusty battle arena, he prepared his secret ancient golden sword art. The technique finally unleashed a blinding wave of pure divine energy. A power this absolutely massive was bound to turn the tide of this entire deadly fight. Yet Chumo just kept eating, enjoying the carnage like a front-row movie. He made absolutely no effort to hide his amusement at the chaos. Take in the spectacle, the bewildered spectators cannot even begin to comprehend why Bai, after landing so many brutal blows, still has not defeated his enemy. Feeling the utter helplessness of this fight, they even keep mocking Chumo for his bizarre look, completely unaware that his calm confidence hides an unbelievable level of raw power. The host turns to the wise elder, asking if this beast is truly an unbeatable monster. While eagerly waiting for an explanation, in response, the old man explains that beasts with rapid regeneration are always the hardest to kill, since even heavy strikes barely drain their life force. As a rule, a whole group of powerful cultivators must attack the creature together from every angle just to have a chance at destroying it. In his eyes, Bai is exceptionally talented, but unfortunately, he likely cannot survive this clash because of the opponent's crazy healing factor and massive strength. By now, the young fighter has drained every drop of his physical and spiritual energy, feeling an overwhelming fatigue that might stop him from moving. Still, he decides that if there is no clear path ahead, he will carve one out with his own blade to rewrite his destiny, looking for any possible opening. Bai wants to prove himself as a true savior and hook the viewers. Watching the live streams by showing off his incredible combat skills, remembering the brutal training it took to master the way of the sword. The fighter refuses to back down now, locking in his focus and determination to win. He decides that everything alive in this moment must return to its absolute origin, trying to restore balance, and seize control of a fight that is getting deadlier by the second. Meanwhile, Chumo just keeps watching, amazed by the flashy visual effects, and admiring the crazy action scenes unfolding right before his eyes. But suddenly he cannot understand why a heavy silence falls over the entire area, making every single sound feel incredibly tense. Now, he decides to step closer to make sure his savior is all right. He carefully scans his surroundings, prepared for any sudden danger. Feeling worried, Chumo asks if he is okay, hoping for a quick reply to make sure his friend is not severely wounded. Sighing with relief, Bai explains that it is all over and the monster is finally dead, calming both his partner and the anxious crowd. But wait, the beast suddenly leaps back up, shocking everyone, and forcing them to prepare for another round against a deadlier version of the threat. The swordsman cannot comprehend why his foe is still standing after those attacks, filling him with dread, so he screams for everyone to run away and escape the rising threat. Raising his hand, Chumo unleashes a massive blast of energy straight at the beast, pouring his full strength into the attack to vaporize the danger. Turning to Bai, the young man apologizes for not hearing him sooner, showing his deep respect for his partner. Bai calmly replies that he has been waiting too. He offered a sincere apology for his harsh, thoughtless behavior earlier. Realizing his sharp words had cut deep, intense regret suddenly hit him. Within the fifth secret world, disciples from tiny, nameless sects had gathered. There he got incredibly lucky, running straight into a youth he had desperately wanted to find. He wanted this conversation for ages, but right now, nothing was certain about the beast. Nobody could say for sure if the horrific monster was actually dead. This vile species possessed insane healing abilities, recovering from anything. To even stand a chance against them, you would need at least 4 top-tier fighters. Even with 4 equally matched cultivators, walking away alive was never guaranteed. Worse still, Bai had already pushed himself to the absolute limit. His energy was completely gone, meaning the next single clash would decide everything. If they failed on this strike, they would quickly become the prey. Pushing his doubts aside, our hero immediately agreed to the plan. He knew the situation was critical, and hesitation meant instant death. Now his companion calmly proposed they combine their remaining strength for one final move. Working together was their only real shot at bringing this nightmare down. The plan was simple: strike the exact moment the beast started to regenerate. Catching it mid-healing would deal the absolute maximum amount of damage. This was their one genuine chance to secure a desperate victory. They had exactly 5 seconds to brace themselves and coordinate the strike. Everything rested on timing this deadly final blow perfectly. Chumo stood there completely lost, clueless on what to do in 5 seconds. Anxious and deeply embarrassed, he felt incredibly awkward under the heavy stares of the others. As the final seconds ticked away, everyone held their breath, frozen in place. They waited in dead silence, coiled like springs for the starting signal. Frozen like statues, they stood completely motionless as time stretched on. The heavy, suffocating silence stretched out, waiting for something to shatter it. Here is where the tension breaks. Our hero realizes something is terribly wrong. The beast was not regenerating, sparking a wave of pure confusion and worry. Before anyone could react, Bai suddenly hacked up a mouthful of dark blood. Yet he calmly insisted he was fine, just needing a moment to rest. Our savior stood there completely stunned, unable to wrap his head around this. How did his companion just end the monster with one blow? It made him wonder if this man's true power reached far beyond human limits. This brutal state was clearly a backlash from that final, devastating technique. His physical body and spiritual energy were utterly hollowed out, leaving him pale. Every shred of his vital aura was actively bleeding away, leaving him defenseless. Gasping for air, each painful breath dragged like broken glass. Even on the verge of death, Bangjun refused to let go of this life. His sheer will to survive burned brightly despite his broken body and shattered spirit. Suddenly, a deafening explosion shattered the quiet air, sending debris flying everywhere. Thick dust billowed upward as absolute terror gripped the onlookers. The blast violently launched the young man back, throwing him through the air. Slamming onto the hard earth with a thud, his bones rattled in agony. In the wake of the blast, absolutely nothing was left of him. Everything is gone. The entire area is now a ruined wasteland. What once was a bustling street is now just a lifeless, barren wasteland. He never even saw the hit coming. An eerie silence hangs over the rubble. It is deeply unsettling. Tension builds. The online chat is losing its mind. But nobody dares to hate on Chumo anymore. They are completely speechless. His raw power has absolutely stunned them. No one can look away. Every single eye is glued to the screen now. What will he do next in this chaotic ruin? No one knows. Suddenly, the stream chat explodes as comments start flying in fast. They praise their savior. His courage and battle skills are unmatched. Ms. Shuang is shocked. This battle ended in the wildest way. Seeking answers, she quickly turns to the elder for his opinion. She urgently needs to understand the true impact of this crazy clash. The elder sighs. He mourns Mangjin but spots a familiar technique. He says Chumo fights like a member of a lost sect, an ancient body refinement sect that used to copy the skills of beasts. They vanished because even their very best fighters hit a ceiling. Their peak was the strength of a 1,000-year-old beast. In combat, they used pure muscle. Spiritual energy was completely ignored. They saved every drop of their kai for the most critical moments. Back in the main office, the staff is buzzing over the broadcast. Everyone is whispering in shock. What does this mean? But get this, Boss Yu realizes something much bigger is at play. He suspects Chu Mo might actually be a descendant of that lost faction. A warrior capable of reaching absolutely insane levels of raw physical power. These disciples possessed power so intense they could slay giant beasts. They mimicked beast abilities to gain a massive edge in battle. But in a world where spiritual energy has almost completely dried up, in a world of dying spiritual energy, even the strongest cultivators are left weak. They can only hold 1,000 years of power. A savior is out of the question. His subordinate tries to calm him down, offering some reassuring words to the boss. He explains that whenever a problem pops up, a solution always presents itself. They are not at a dead end yet, especially with Lee Hanlon on their side. The third son of the Lee family is now running the amusement park project. He definitely won't sit idly by, but they still need to buy some time. This gives their team enough breathing room to analyze the situation without any rush. The boss quickly orders his assistant to execute a very dangerous mission next. He must go to the hospital and kidnap Chumo's sister right away. She is the absolute key to making their dark plans a reality. He also tells all employees to take the day off to avoid any witnesses. Nobody should be there to interfere, but the assistant still hesitates on the plan. He suggests hiring more guards as their current security is weak. But Boss Shu quickly reminds him that he makes all decisions alone. He coldly reminds everyone that he alone makes the decisions around here. He had slowly climbed his way up, rising from a street thug to his current powerful status. Because of this, he vowed to fight for his life until the very last breath. He would never back down, no matter what brutal obstacles blocked his path. Before heading down to hell, he wanted to look down from above one final time. He needed to memorize every detail and enjoy his final view of this world. Meanwhile, fierce battles raged every single second in a secret world hidden from outsiders. Every second was pure chaos, and now Yudam found herself in extreme danger. Surrounded by shadowy threats, her life hung by a very thin thread. A massive, terrifying monster had completely taken over the entire region, spreading total chaos. Anyone brave or foolish enough to approach would instantly fall victim to its madness. Now the beast was closing in, creeping closer to them by the second. The thick tension was overwhelming, making their hearts pound with a deep sense of dread. Looking around, the young girl realized that all her brave comrades were already dead. The crushing weight of utter loss and absolute loneliness suddenly crashed down on her. In that dark moment, a shocking realization hit her. She never wanted this. She never actually wanted to be a savior, and her dreams had nothing to do with heroism. The poor girl fell into deep despair, completely exhausted from this endless, brutal ordeal. She was sick of running and just wanted this nightmare to finally end. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice called out her name, shattering the heavy silence. Her heart stopped in pure shock. It was actually him, right there. This was the weak mortal who joined the system's trial right at the start. Seeing him standing there filled her with a wild mix of shock and confusion. Tong had somehow managed to survive in this deadly world crawling with vicious monsters. Normally, regular people could not last even 2 minutes in these cursed trials. The young man smiled, explaining that he had just gotten incredibly lucky out here. He sincerely thanked her for the sword, since it had saved his life multiple times. But when he asked about her companions, the young lady grew quiet and sad. She whispered that they were all gone, having perished while chasing their noble dreams. They wanted to be heroes and save the world, but reality was far too cruel. No matter how hard they struggled, they were completely outmatched by the great sect. To the terrifying monsters of this world, they were nothing but an easy snack. Tong agreed with her sad words, remembering how brutal this system really was. He had just watched an elite cultivator get slaughtered right in front of him. It was a cold reminder of how incredibly dangerous this trial could be. So he asked the young lady to join him and form a team. Together, they could watch each other's backs. Tong wanted to find a safe hideout. If they could just hide until the strongest players defeated the final boss, they would survive. That way, they could finally return to the safety of the real world. Seriously, we're all begging her to realize that her savior is standing right there. Tong could easily protect her from any danger if she would just accept his help. Meanwhile, Tong still had no idea that their friend Bai had blown himself up. Only she knew the horrific truth behind Bai's final, desperate act of sacrifice. But the brutal trials kept on going, with absolutely no end in sight. With each new level bringing deadlier traps, the duo made a vital decision. They had to stick together and face this terrifying world as a team. All the trials ahead, suddenly Chumo hears strange noises close by, and his chest immediately tightens with a deep, creeping dread of an ambush. Tun still does not understand, her mind clouded with confusion. With absolute confusion and fear from all these sudden, chaotic events. But a second later, the monster lunges right in front of her face, forcing her to realize the deadly threat hanging over her right now. The two of them do not even dare to look back for a second, running at full speed toward the massive, imposing building standing in the distance. Tun mentions that she has actually run into this terrifying creature once before, and somehow she miraculously managed to escape with her life. Suddenly, she scoops Chumo up, completely catching him off guard. Without explaining a single thing, she just quietly rushes ahead with him. She simply tells Chumo that he needs to trust her completely now. With resolute strides, she pushes forward, ignoring any obstacle in her path. Once they slip inside the giant hall, the beast finally drops behind. The immediate danger is gone, leaving only an eerie, suffocating silence behind. Chumo lets out a breath, feeling a wave of regret wash over him. He genuinely apologizes for doubting her words and not trusting her sooner. Those creatures have pretty sharp eyesight, but their hearing is completely terrible. So the plan is to head up to the top floor and rest for a bit. They desperately need to catch their breath and recover some energy. Chumo remembers seeing the blueprints, noting that the stairwell is on their left. He points toward the dark corridor, hoping his memory is not tricking him. But Tun quickly rejects the idea, wanting to take the elevator instead. She claims it is a much safer and faster way to ascend. This wild twist leaves Chumo completely shocked. Who would use an elevator now? He just stands there frozen, wondering if she has completely lost her mind. She explains that this instance is an exact replica of the real world, meaning even the power grid and modern systems function just the same. But Chumo is worried about something else entirely. He points out that the stairwell offers escape routes, unlike a cramped metal trap in the shaft. And just like that, a random argument breaks out under extreme pressure. Neither side is willing to back down, forcing the tension even higher. Tun snaps that she is absolutely exhausted from constantly running away. Chumo, however, coldly concludes that she is simply too weak. He thinks she is just terrified of facing any real danger directly. Furious, she fires back that using the elevator is perfectly logical. After all, a brainless beast would never understand how to operate technology. It acts on pure, primitive instinct, completely blind to modern machinery. Right then, the elevator doors slide open with a dull, low hum. A flickering overhead light promises them a fast escape to the top. But as the metal doors part, a horrific sight awaits inside. The bodies of eliminated players are piled up in a gory heap. Chumo turns pale, slowly looking over at Tun with sheer dread. He quietly asks if she recognizes these deep, jagged slash marks. This was the very same enemy chasing them before. He needed to understand this threat. Looking closer, Tun realized everything here was different. The entire place had completely changed. A powerful new creature held absolute dominion over this space. It was a massive trap. They had been lured into this building on purpose. Now they were cornered in a deadly environment with almost no way out. Time was running out fast, and they desperately needed to hide. If those two monsters managed to surround them, it would be game over. They absolutely had to find a large room with some decent hiding spot to wait things out. The team decided to make a run for a large office up on the higher floors. Hoping to find some temporary shelter there, they just needed to breathe. But the beast was already tracking them. It sniffed the air, narrowing down their exact location with every single step. Terror filled the room as its gaze swept through, picking up any movement. Any tiny mistake would give the rescuers away in a heartbeat. Right now, the group was crouched behind a massive office desk, completely out of sight. For a brief second, they felt safe enough to plan their next move. Meanwhile, the stream viewers fully believed in the player. He was incredibly cold, remaining calm as a statue despite the danger. Looking completely untouchable, he kept his cool while the beast searched. He tracked every sound and analyzed the slightest shift in the air, almost as if its mind could pierce right through the walls. Those glowing eyes peered everywhere, cutting through the shadows and concrete. Nothing could remain hidden from its supernatural sight for long. Our main guy quietly warned his companion to stay extremely careful. He told her to move without a sound and stick to the shadows. If they stayed hidden, they might just survive this nightmare. Assuring her he had this handled, he boasted about killing a monster before. Dealing with this kind of threat was second nature to him. But Tun did not buy it for a single second. She argued that protecting civilians was her duty as a cultivator. Nothing would change her mind. Suddenly, he picked up a sound. Footsteps were echoing nearby, getting closer with every passing second. Bracing himself, he listened closely to prepare for an imminent fight. Tun realized right then that her companion had incredibly sharp senses. Protecting the entire team would be easy work for him. Chumo whispered that this was absolutely no time for joking around. One tiny slip-up would cost them their lives in this place. Outside, those beasts were slowly closing in on their position. They slithered through the dark, ready to strike at any moment. Now this is where things get incredibly intense, and he knew she was right. There really was no time left for jokes or light banter anymore. Every single second could mean the difference between life and death. Stalking the office, the beast checked every room. Shadows and potential hiding spots were carefully scanned. The thick air made it crystal clear that the enemy was right there. He was definitely over 300 years old, boasting strength far beyond ordinary limits. Mortals stood zero chance. The rescuer had absolutely no idea how to handle these terrifying opponents, feeling completely helpless against their overwhelming presence. They seemed completely unpredictable. At first glance, their builds looked rather comical, but a devastating power lurked beneath, ready to explode at any second. The two monsters wandered through the office, searching for any signs of life. While trying to remain completely silent, they listened carefully to every tiny sound. It felt exactly like a horror movie. Everyone watching could feel the tension. Every sudden movement or faint creak sent a cold shiver down their collective spines. Meanwhile, the young man kept perfectly still in his tight hiding spot. He held his breath, closely scanning his dark surroundings and analyzing the distant noises. Suddenly, the creature found him. It lunged right into his field of vision, forcing him to react instantly. The dangerous threat was right on top of him. But right then, his relative placed a hand on his shoulder to calm him down, building a protective barrier between the boy and the deadly threat. Suddenly, the beasts started talking. They communicated in a bizarre, rhythmic tongue that sounded incredibly creepy, terrifying anyone who heard them. These weird noises completely paralyzed everyone in the room. It grew absolutely deafening. It seemed like the creatures were arguing, shouting and roaring at each other as the pressure kept building. Then the beasts chose to back off. They probably realized who they were dealing with. Rumors said the savior had once destroyed one of They're kind with just one strike, so they decided to play it safe. Instead of fighting, they bolted, fleeing the scene in absolute terror. They did not want a repeat of that disaster. Silence returned. The team felt a massive wave of relief, but they were also deeply shocked that these brutal opponents just ran away without a fight. The watching viewers, however, were pretty annoyed by this sudden escape. They wanted action. This sudden lack of a bloody showdown left them feeling deeply disappointed by the complete lack of a real struggle. Yet it was the very first time anyone had seen beasts flee from cultivators. It was honestly pretty amazing to witness such raw authority. Just then, a loud system notification popped up on their screens. The first major mission boss was spawning on the map, warning everyone to prepare immediately for what would surely be a brutal struggle. But this scary announcement did not even faze the girl at all. She was already terrified, facing a 500-year-old monster. Felt totally absurd, so she suggested they find a safe spot to hide out until the other players finished all the heavy lifting. That way they could save their strength. The group stepped out onto Shwan Street, looking at the looming buildings and the messy crowds of people. The heavy, tense city atmosphere was clear. Right ahead of them, a massive beam of light sliced through the darkness, casting long, eerie shadows and exposing every hidden detail of the street. Suddenly they froze. They had just spotted their main target. Their adversary stood there, radiating a terrifying aura of pure dread. They felt instant panic. How could a monster be this strong? The system messages from this secret realm had definitely lied to them. Just then, a mysterious stranger suddenly approached them on the road. He called out in a low voice, putting everyone on high guard. This newcomer belonged to the Taishun sect and had a proposal. He offered to join forces so they could survive the boss fight. The man promised full support and backup in the upcoming battle. But Yuding immediately refused, admitting they were far too weak. No amount of extra backup could make up for their complete lack of experience. In other regions, there were disciples of the four great sects. Some of those elite cultivators were strong enough to take down giants. They could easily slay a 500-year-old beast. But the stranger knew they had to unite if they wanted to survive. There was only one exit, and going solo meant certain death. Luckily, his sect possessed a powerful artifact designed to destroy it. Activating this weapon would only take a few short seconds. With a larger group, everyone would have a better chance of living. A coordinated strike was the only way to secure a victory. Just then, the young master noticed his apprentice had returned. The kid had wrapped up his mission way ahead of schedule. His speed and poise under pressure were genuinely impressive. By now, the player had managed to assemble a solid group. They gathered exactly 164 survivors. No one expected the difficulty of this trial to spike so fast. The number of fallen cultivators was already way worse than expected. The remaining fighters had to push past their absolute limits. Their plan was simple: keep the beast busy for a moment. Meanwhile, the young master had to activate the Thunder Aurora. This item was easily the most prized possession of the Taishun sect. It only had a single charge, making this a high-stakes gamble. The man had only handed over the M4 due to his weakness. Without proper support, surviving this threat was practically impossible. At the same time, the father wanted his son to use the artifact. He wanted to buy more time so they could gather more cultivators. More people meant a much better chance of defeating the enemy. But the master knew this reckless plan would cost many lives. Yet he was entirely prepared to bear those terrible consequences. His father only cared about making his son much stronger. Defeating the final boss would yield a massive pile of fate coins. The spectators would shower him with currency to instantly raise his level. But the young man argued back, refusing to get his hands dirty. His own moral principles were worth far more than any cheap rewards. He chose his honor over fame, leaving the elder utterly speechless. The father asked if he had forgotten their dream of building a sect equal to the top four. He reminded his son of the grand goal that demanded absolute dedication. After all, the old man had worked tirelessly to build their group into a power. But they had finally hit a wall, unable to grow further without extreme risks. Because in this ruthless world, there were only two kinds of people. You were either a cultivator from the elite four sects, or you were trash. It was a brutal, unyielding reality that decided exactly where you belonged in life. According to his father, their clan had always been treated like second-class citizens. But the sudden, mysterious emergence of this secret world finally gave them a real opening. This was their golden ticket to catch up and ultimately surpass the elite. To do that, the son had to plunge the fifth trial's players into pure terror. Only by making them despair could he sweep in, destroy the beast, and become their savior. That was the only way to win their ultimate respect and devotion. Hearing this, the young man reluctantly agreed, knowing he had no real choice. Saying no would only bring down ruin on himself and his entire team. Standing before his sect, he bowed and apologized on his father's behalf. He accepted the harsh decision while fully taking blame for what came next. He explained that their sacrifice was a grim, unavoidable necessity. Without it, completing this lethal mission and keeping anyone alive was simply impossible. Right on cue, the roaring boss of the first trial materialized before them. Its presence sent a massive jolt of fear and raw adrenaline through the crowd. The players nervously murmured, wondering if the legendary Thunder Amphora could really kill it. Yet they chose to place their faith in Tian Chen, banking on his stellar reputation. And let's be real, they didn't have many options to begin with. It was either trust him completely or perish in a realm that never forgives errors. A few players cared only about surviving, meticulously calculating every single step. Meanwhile, the rest could only dream of the massive rewards waiting at the end. Chumo quickly told the girl not to stop him, refusing to run away like a coward. He was ready to fight alongside the team, determined to see this through to the end. He explained that those mysterious coins of fate had boosted his combat skills immensely. With everyone else stepping up to the plate, he refused to just watch from the sidelines. Tong was completely stunned that he had gained so much raw power from those coins. She had never even dreamed that such a massive shortcut to strength existed. After entering the secret dimension, he got lucky enough to grab some coins. Those fake coins immediately pushed his base strength to a whole new level. But after that sudden boost, none of his attributes grew even a single point. The young lady knew this stagnation was actually normal. If power could scale forever, someone would have become a god by now. Still, it felt incredibly weird that she could not sense any spiritual energy from him. He had definitely absorbed the coins, so he should have been radiating at least a faint aura. Chumo suddenly declared that he was absolutely done with holding back and hiding. Right here and now, he was going to unleash his true, unrestricted power. Surprised by his sudden outburst, she realized something highly amusing. That sounded exactly like a cliché line from a comic, and she never pinned him for a fan. Honestly, our hero never expected actual cultivators to recognize those nerdy tropes. They usually spend their lives meditating and training, though some still read comics. Most of these practitioners actively interact with modern society, and plenty of them have gradually grown greedy for money, influence, and raw power. Meanwhile, over in Boss Shu's office, everything is going exactly according to plan. His dedicated crew executes every task without asking any unnecessary questions. They support him, his strategy is carefully prepared. The workers sincerely thank him for his incredible kindness and generosity. These workers feel genuine respect for him and stand fully prepared. Everyone trusts his judgment, completely viewing him as their absolute, undisputed leader. But Shu knows the truth. Chumo cannot be underestimated. He sent his men detailed files about Chumo's abilities and past achievements. Subordinates assure him that the young man lacks advanced martial arts skills. He has absolutely zero experience fighting against actual, real cultivators. This means he poses no threat. Besides, the planet's energy is gone. All the extra combat power from those fake coins has already completely faded. The power just drifted away, scattering directly into the surrounding environment. So they assure their leader they can eliminate Chumo easily. It does not matter when he returns, they will leave him zero chance. Suddenly things change. The trial's difficulty has spiked once again. The boy and the other players prepare themselves for a massive, fierce battle. Shu's staff worries the kid might die before even making it back. This terrifying possibility fills the entire office with a heavy wave of intense anxiety. But the boss promises that they will all still get their handsome rewards. No matter how the trial ends or what difficulties they face. Wait, look at that door, something is moving right behind it. Mercenaries cannot comprehend the terrifying spiritual energy heading right for them. It instantly floods their minds with sheer panic and a sense of absolute helplessness. Boss Shu definitely did not expect his dangerous guests to show up so quickly. He is genuinely surprised and concerned, but quickly tells his men to stay calm. There is a top master standing right there, specifically hired to eliminate Chumo. This expert can handle any threat, being the senior advisor to the powerful Li family. Other bounty hunters always address him with absolute respect because of his fierce reputation. His legendary combat skills speak for themselves in their world. Time flies, leaving a massive sense of urgency for everyone in the area. The boss is approaching fast, forcing everyone to prepare for the sudden encounter. Meanwhile, the cultivators quickly scramble to take their strategic positions. They surround the outer perimeter of the final boss's territory. Now preparing for the massive fight, they coordinate their actions. The lead master keeps a very close eye on the powerful artifact. He is ready to activate it at the perfect moment to avoid errors. Yan watches all this in total surprise, completely confused by their passive stance. She cannot understand why they are not attacking the monster together. Silently, she analyzes their strange strategy, trying to predict their next move. The girl realizes that if they split into 50 separate groups and attack, one after another, they can easily keep the massive monster distracted. Just long enough to safely use the Emperor, but Chumo quickly realized that whichever group the creature targeted first would face the greatest danger. Every single step they took now demanded perfect timing and absolute caution. Still, they had no choice. That was the grim plan, sacrifice a few to save the rest, yet the young lady stayed completely confident, refusing to die here. Not before seeing the ending anyway, remembering lines from her favorite manhwa. Those words kept her fighting, keeping her head high even in this nightmare. She even promised that once they escaped this secret world, she would finally introduce her companion to the creator of that comic. It was an old promise. That author, Sachama, never did public events, building a massive reputation as a highly secretive and incredibly mysterious creator. His total absence from the spotlight only made his legend grow. Turns out he was a cultivator too, choosing to mingle only with fellow practitioners. This kept him focused entirely on honing his skills to remain the absolute best. Our young hero had another massive reason to survive besides returning to his sister. A powerful urge had awakened inside him to prove his real strength here. They both knew they had to push through every brutal obstacle ahead. Facing deadly trials meant watching each other's backs no matter what. This shared struggle only forged their resolve. Chumo agreed with her completely, backing her logic 100% without a single doubt. Working as a team was their only real shot at surviving this nightmare. He swore to himself that he would walk out of this dimension alive. Nothing was going to stop him from overcoming these lethal threats. The beast was seconds away from appearing, and the tension was utterly suffocating. Hearts hammered wildly in chests as they waited, and then the first sign. A massive, terrifyingly huge paw thrust itself straight out of the glowing portal. Instantly, everyone froze, tracking the beast's movements with sheer dread. Preparing themselves for the worst, to even enter this hidden space, he had begged the Lord of the Gods to lower his combat power to match. A 500-year-old beast, willingly giving up his godlike strength. This thing absolutely starved for the flesh and blood of local cultivators. Its eyes burned with pure malice, making every single move a death sentence. And get this, the hunt was on, where one wrong glance meant death. The air was thick with panic. They had to act fast and smart. Meanwhile, our players were as ready as they could be for this clash. Double-checking armor, weapons, and tactics, waiting for the split second to strike. The strategy was simple but extremely risky. Hit first with everything. Unleash all their massive firepower at the target first, and then immediately back off. Maximizing every single bit of damage while keeping their own skins intact. But as you can probably guess, plans fell apart. They massively underestimated its power. Suddenly, every single step forward felt like walking straight into a meat grinder, threatening to shatter their strategy entirely, and then its speed. It was blindingly fast. Trying to even track its movements was completely useless, pushing them right to the edge of absolute panic and desperate focus. The sadistic beast wanted to hear its wounded prey scream as loudly as possible. Using their screams to lure other rescuers into a trap and spread pure panic. Grabbing them by the head, it worked to inflict maximum pain, dialing their fear up to the absolute limit, while showing off its power and keeping absolute control. Of the situation, the warriors simply could not comprehend. How a wild monster like this spoke perfect human language. It sent a cold shiver down their spines, absolute dread. Yet the monster actually loved fighting these brave players, especially when it crushed them like ants, laughing at their fear and enjoying its absolute dominance. Invincibility felt amazing. Now, the beast eagerly waited for its next target. Locked onto the players, tracking every step and preparing to strike. But then a figure suddenly appeared right on its blind side, pulling the beast's focus away as it turned to face this new threat. It was sensing something else, too, the distinct smell of spiritual energy. Even though the players were hiding, the beast's sharp senses tracked them down, making it impossible for anyone to stay hidden. Then it spotted a girl standing all alone, which made no sense. Her isolation caught its attention, drawing the beast closer to investigate. That is when Tun looked it dead in the eye and spoke. She said she was more than enough to handle a beast like him. Her voice was pure confidence, ready to fight this nightmare alone. Her bold attitude only amused the monster, making it grin with pride. It absolutely loved when its prey thought they actually stood a chance. Without another word, Tun launched her attack, aiming straight at the target. She put everything she had into this strike, pushing for a quick end. The dust kicked up, leaving everyone wondering if she actually hurt him. They watched closely, holding their breath to see if the beast would stumble. And honestly, did that attack even do anything at all? It turned out the monster did not feel a single thing from her blow. The beast literally laughed at how weak she was, showing the massive gap between their power levels, but then a young man appeared behind it. Out of nowhere, Chumo completely threw off the creature's guard. His fist was already raised, packed with pure, raw power and determination. He was ready to drop a devastating blow at any moment. With a roar, his cultivator energy exploded across the battlefield. The shockwave ripped through the ground, heading straight for the monster. It left a path of total destruction, proving just how strong he is. The beast's ears perked up, totally caught off guard by this move. It moved instantly, forcing its body to twist away from the blast. Chumo had calculated this perfectly, forcing the creature to dodge. He used clever tactics to put the beast at a massive disadvantage. Now the monster actually felt curious about this new human. Finally, a cultivator had stepped up who was genuinely strong. An opportunity for a real battle had finally arrived. Meanwhile, our host still could not tell if this fifth world boss was a mutant, so the host immediately asked for a detailed explanation to get clear answers. Ms. Shuang explained that stronger monsters actually look more like humans. An appearance this human is actually incredibly rare. Typically, only beasts over 800 years old reach this level of evolution. But the reports from the secret world do not lie, as the elder knew all too well. It turns out the fifth world's final trial was much harder than other worlds. The gap was massive. Next, they asked him to explain the dodge. How did it happen? How did the creature dodge Chumo's strike? They desperately wanted to understand its insane speed and predict its next moves. But the expert saved his full analysis for later, keeping them in suspense. Stop distracting, he suggested, returning to the live broadcast right away. Meanwhile, back in the arena, one young girl was absolutely terrified. She absolutely hated this dangerous showcase, leaving her paralyzed with sheer fear and shock. Fear gripped her, still, they had a plan in place. Her job was to distract the monster, while her partner prepared a fatal blow. They needed to strike from the shadows with total surprise and maximum force. But suddenly she realized something. The final boss was gone. She actually thought the beast got scared and ran away, feeling a sudden wave of relief. It was shocking, but she was celebrating way too early. The monster had only one target, her partner, but could not detect him yet. His power was hidden. That gave him a massive advantage. But the monster is smart. He realizes he can lure the fighter out using the girl. If he kills her, her partner will be forced into the open. Yuding. Sashi was frozen in place, helplessly waiting for a cold death. Impending doom hung heavy in the air, wrapping her in absolute, heart-stopping terror. By now, the high-ranking beast was already standing right over her. The strike was coming fast. Yuang felt inescapable dread. Suddenly, a young man appeared out of nowhere to block the attack. He threw himself as a shield between Yuang and the beast, risking everything. He risked everything to save her, but it was a trap. The beast grins, thrilled his trick worked, and readies a devastating counterattack. In the crowds, some spectators were absolutely thrilled to watch, but others watch with sheer anxiety, knowing one mistake means instant death. The boss is just too powerful. Every exchange could easily end a life. Viewers glue their eyes to the live stream, analyzing every single exchange. They held their breath, calculating their chances of victory. Meanwhile, the sound of brutal clashes echoes through the entire area. It feels like someone is desperately fighting the boss just a few feet away. They fought desperately, trying to hold their ground to survive. The other warriors know this is their ultimate chance to join the fray. They must support their allies right now to tip the scales of battle. But greed drove them. They wanted those victory rewards. Some are already dreaming about how they will split the massive treasure. They are already planning how to split the loot once the beast falls. Even his ally only agreed to help for a share of the prize. His share of the prize once they win, betting everything on this risky gamble. But they are not alone out there. A powerful, mysterious young warrior stands with them, holding back the dangerous beast with absolute confidence as they watch. The others watch in awe. Fear turns to sudden hope. Chumo barely dodges the brutal attacks on pure instinct, slipping past lethal strikes, constantly searching for a chance to strike back. His sharp eyes lock onto the beast. He tracks every movement closely, anticipating the next lethal blow. The monster gets deeply confused. Where exactly is he looking? His focus seems fixed on something far behind its back, deep in darkness. It is as if he is staring at some hidden threat in the dark. Taking advantage of this, the beast swings and lands a crushing blow. Chumo flies backward. He crashes very heavily into the dirt. He still stands. It is hard to believe he is breathing. Devastating blows like that would have easily broken any normal warrior. A realization hits. An immense power is locked deep inside Chumo. But he is holding it back, letting out only a tiny fraction. He hides his true might, but why? The crowd starts to panic, deeply doubting the boy. He looks weak. To them, he is unfit for this fight. Yet some onlookers yell out, urging people to throw gold to help him. They hope this support boosts his power. Talk about a desperate gamble. Let us see if it works. Meanwhile, the monster gloats, enjoying the sheer terror of its prey. It watches them with cruel curiosity, feeding on their fear. The beast is absolutely sure the young fighter cannot last much longer. It expects his stamina to dry up before he can land a blow. The demon practically begs to end his misery right now. No more pain, he begs to end the awful struggle. But suddenly a glowing lasso whips out of nowhere, binding the beast. It wraps tightly. The glowing rope leaves no room for escape. The creature thrashes wildly against this relentless, invisible force. Right then, the young lady leaps onto the battlefield. Rushing to help, she stands by her ally when it matters. This is a clutch move, and things are turning fast. She desperately fights to buy them some precious time. She pours every ounce of her strength into slowing down this dangerous opponent. The beast freezes in pure shock, realizing it cannot move a muscle. Its raw power is completely sealed. Seizing this perfect moment, Chumo is already winding up his attack. Every muscle tenses as he focuses his energy for one massive, final strike. He lets loose. His fist smashes directly into the beast's face. Shattered bone, his fist completely breaks the creature's face. It sends the giant flying back, leaving everyone breathless. Smoke rises. The entire battlefield is completely swallowed up. Fire tears through the air. Smoke, debris, and absolute chaos fill the sky. The entire battlefield turns into a deadly war zone. In the end, Tun. Her arm is shattered. Pure agony pulses through her entire limb. Every movement is a struggle, but she forces herself onward. Saving her companion from certain death was all that mattered. She put everything on the line, bravely facing danger despite being completely exhausted. Her sacrifice gives him the opening. He knocks the giant monster down. But the strike is not fatal. Worse, his body is running on empty. Suddenly, a group of other cultivators arrives on the battlefield. They are ready to strike the boss immediately, charging forward with weapons drawn. These newcomers leap into the fray, showing off their speed. Seeing the exhausted fighter on the ground, they decide to move. They prepare to join the fight, acting like they want to help. They are definitely not hero material, though they act like it. In reality, they only care about one thing, the massive boss reward. Greed drives them forward, making them take stupid risks for a payout. Talk about a massive gamble. but greed really makes people do crazy things. Chumo yells at them to stay back, warning that the beast is still dangerous. One wrong move from these players could get them all killed. But they do not believe him. They think he is just being selfish. They assume Chumo wants to keep all the legendary rewards for himself. Suddenly, a sharp blade flashes. A player gets slashed from behind by his teammate. The cold steel tears through his back, leaving him gasping in pain. He stumbles forward, completely blindsided by the sudden and brutal strike of the blade. The betrayed man cannot believe it. How could his partner do this? He never expected a knife in the back from someone he called an ally. But the traitor just sneezes. He explains his cold logic very simply. He was never going to share the loot anyway, so why bother pretending? Eliminating his teammate means he gets to keep the entire prize alone. Meanwhile, the giant boss slowly opens its eyes, ready for round 2. Its glare is pure malice now, locking onto its next target. The creature radiates raw danger, preparing to unleash a devastating attack. It lunges forward like a bullet, closing the distance in a split second. A wave of sheer panic washes over the battlefield as death approaches. The betrayed cultivator freezes in terror, completely unable to move a muscle. Fear grips him completely as the monstrous threat bears down on him. Up on a nearby roof, the young master and his assistant watch closely. They analyze the chaos below, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But even they are shocked by what they see down there. The final boss is actually a humanoid monster, something they never expected. Facing such a strange and dangerous opponent is a massive curveball. Still, Yan is confident his Thunder Ampha will get the job done. The weapon should easily destroy a 700-year-old beast. But the ancient monster is not actually what has Yan worried. Instead, his eyes are locked onto the young man fighting it right now. He was genuinely terrified. Could the youth even survive this deadly clash? No one believed it, a genius like this, outside the major sectors. And yet his own power level was useless. He couldn't even compare. He remained far weaker, especially against a beast of this caliber. Ordinary cultivators, they would be absolutely obliterated in seconds. Their mortal strength simply could not match such raw, destructive fury. Had they all attacked together, perhaps they stood a fighting chance. But the mighty Empora remained entirely passive during this critical moment. Without its destructive force, their teamwork meant nothing. To the young master, losing a genius like him was an absolute tragedy. It would devastate the cultivator world. Actually, it would devastate the entire world. His insane potential could literally reshape the entire course of history. The plan was incredibly dangerous, but the man knew he had to act. He braced himself, ready to face any risk to save the kid. Then disaster strikes. The beast suddenly lunges straight at the young lady. It unleashes a deadly strike, aiming to end her life right there. Chumo reacts instantly. He screams for the beast to back off. He warns the monster not to drag her into this brutal fight. He desperately tries to shield her, standing firmly between her and death. The beast only sneers. It absolutely despises cultivators who rely on flashy spells. To this monster, pure brute force is the only thing that decides everything. But for this specific human, it will make a rare exception. It decides to bend its own rules just for this fight. In an instant, a massive cage of pure shadow erupts from the ground. It completely swallows the young man, leaving him with no escape. He is trapped. Dark, heavy shadow locks him inside a living nightmare. The sudden trap completely catches him off guard. Panic sets in. He temporarily loses his grip on the situation, frozen in pure shock. This shadow cage is an innate technique the beast possessed from birth. It costs the monster 0 energy, making this trap endlessly powerful. To break free, Chumo would need at least 20 seconds. But 20 seconds is plenty of time for the beast to slaughter the girl. It leaves him absolutely 0 chance to protect her from this horror. The boss mockingly dares Chumo to save her. He tells him to fight. If he fails to break out, only her cold corpse will remain. Chumo thrashes. He pours every ounce of energy into breaking the bars. He strains his muscles and spirit, desperately fighting the tight restraints. The black energy holds fast, defying his furious attempts to escape. The monster laughs, sinisterly holding the girl's life hostage. The agonizing mental pressure is designed to break him completely. And yet Chumo refuses to break. He channels a sudden surge of power. With sheer burning willpower, he incredibly shatters the shadow barrier. His absolute refusal to die completely blindsides the arrogant beast. For the first time, its supreme confidence begins to crack. The monster can only watch in absolute horror as a furious Chumo. He actually thanked the cage. It was the key to finally understanding his own body. He could now channel his true strength and unleash it at the most critical moment. This new cultivation stage genuinely surprised him with its overwhelming power. It was incredibly efficient and fast, even across the most rugged terrain. He never expected this. As a reward for this intense breakthrough, he decided to return the girl to his companion, knowing that this simple gesture would secure their bond for a long time. Chumo immediately focused on reviving the unconscious girl, using every bit of his skill. He did everything possible to wake her up from her deep slumber. The strange creature assured him that she was still breathing, only knocked out. Hearing those words, all his lingering anxiety and doubt began to fade away. Now Chumo swore he wouldn't step off this battlefield until his enemy was dead. He stood his ground, fully prepared to fight to the absolute bitter end. He wouldn't take a single step back, which absolutely infuriated the boss. The monster prepared to unleash its most devastating skills to crush him. It wanted nothing less than complete dominance, forcing Chumo to back down. Suddenly, a massive wave of dark shadows swept across the entire area. It swallowed everything, choking the air with pure dread. But with a casual swipe of his arm, Chumo blocked the incoming strike. He tracked every single movement, refusing to let the monster break through. With total confidence, he looked the beast in the eye and asked a question. He taunted the beast, asking if it had anything stronger to show him. He wanted to see its true peak. Honestly, did this monster really think it could win? It completely underestimated the young cultivator, ignoring his real threat level. That mistake was about to cost it, in the blink of an eye. Chumo materialized right next to the beast, driving a heavy blow into its ribs. The impact was so devastating, it left the monster gasping and paralyzed. It never saw this coming, suddenly pushed back and struggling to defend itself. Its confident plans and physical advantages were turning to ash right now. Meanwhile, Chumo kept up the relentless pressure, throwing a flurry of precise strikes. He stayed perfectly calm, refusing to let excitement cloud his focus. He held complete, absolute control over the pace of this fight. Desperate, the beast pulled a trick, swapping places with its own shadow. It hoped this sudden teleportation would disorient Chumo and buy some time. But the trick failed. It was clear the creature was now utterly terrified of him. Every frantic dodge and panicked movement betrayed its deep terror of the young cultivator. It was no longer fighting to win, but simply struggling to survive. Then Chumo shifted his body into an entirely different, ethereal state. This next-level technique showed just how insane his mastery had become. He could now strike the beast even through its physical defenses. To force open the secret pocket realm, the monster had to suppress its aura. It commanded its followers to pray just to survive a few seconds inside. Meanwhile, the sect leaders watched the entire clash unfold through their projection. They carefully analyzed every move, evaluating the candidate's raw potential. They needed to see who was actually worthy of entering the trial. Barely surviving but gaining the upper hand, Yen worried about the young master. Could see she was desperate for him not to miss a single detail. So he could correctly read the field and make a quick choice. The hero definitely held the advantage. Against the beast, he used his insane speed and combat tactics to completely dominate. He controlled the pace completely, easily dodging every lethal strike. Suddenly, the Thunder M4 activated, a clear sign that the secret world trials were ending. Everyone had to dig deep now. For this final, brutal stage, in that moment the group decided to move, quickly coordinating their play to back him up and provide support, right at the absolute worst possible moment. But what happened right next left them in absolute, pure shock. Nobody ever saw this coming, the sheer scale of it. Completely blew their minds. Right before their eyes, the creature grew incredibly stronger, its presence easily rivaled that of an 800-year-old beast, unleashing pure, terrifying power. The young master stood silent, saying nothing, his jaw clenched. But the look on his face screamed pure panic, complete terror. The suffocating tension weighing down on him was almost too much. In that moment, he realized his mistake, a massive, crushing realization. The consequences began to sink in, heavy and unforgiving. Worst of all, the Thunder Emperor had not been activated. This ruined their plans, totally unexpected. Everyone was thrown into chaos. Now they had to pivot, fast, bracing for the worst. The crowd saw right through him. The guy was terrified. With his fear exposed, they realized Chumo was their only hope left. His sheer grit and unmatched power were their last defense. Every eye was glued to Liu Tianan, tracking his next move. They desperately tried to analyze his hidden strength and strategic schemes. Soon enough, the grim reality of his actions became clear. A toxic manipulator like him, he should never be allowed in any group. His cunning, backstabbing nature would only get people killed. Outside, a creepy, heavy purple glow washed over the entire city. Every street and square felt haunted, buzzing with an eerie danger. The beast was reverting right back to its true, horrific form. It reclaimed its raw, unmatched power, ready to unleash absolute hell. Its terrifying new appearance left no doubt about the threat. Chumo quickly realized this beast was completely out of its mind. It constantly trashed humanity while shifting into a grotesque new shape. Its constant, erratic twitching revealed a deeply unstable, fractured mind. Honestly, the hero actually preferred it when the monster looked like a dog. At least that form was way less threatening and kind of cute. But the boss bragged about being on an entirely different level. He spat on humans, calling them a weak, pathetic species. In his eyes, monsters were the ones destined to rule. Sitting at the absolute top of the food chain, possessing unreal strength and the power to dominate all lesser beings, the final bosses from the first to the fourth. Secret worlds were already dead, leaving the hosts completely shocked by this. Incredible news, since the challengers had far exceeded all expectations. So they decided to turn their screens toward the dreaded fifth dimension, which had everyone terrified, hoping to see exactly what made it so dangerous. Right there, the ultimate cultivator of unknown powers was waiting, a beast whose sheer presence sent shivers down the spines of everyone watching. Liu Jiang even mistook him for the final boss of the entire second stage, seeing how his raw aura and terrifying form oozed godly power. The sect elder also stepped in to give his grave take on this. He explained that only ancient monsters living over 1,000 years could take such a terrifying human shape. It was a level of power beyond comprehension. Ms. SH sighed, basically calling it a flat-out death sentence for the players. Let's be real, they are in some serious trouble here. This monster has a combat power of 10,000, an absolute peak level. Only the strongest mortal master on Earth could ever reach. This meant the beast our main character faced was basically a god. It possessed the strength of a savior, making this challenge incredibly lethal. Meanwhile, the deadly clash on screen only continued to escalate. Every single trade of blows grew twice as intense as before. Both fighters unleashed relentless strategy and pressure. Then, with a heavy strike, Chumo successfully shoves the massive beast backward, showing incredible control. This tiny opening gives him a massive psychological edge in the duel. His posture shifts, growing way more relaxed and confident as he begins, guiding the rhythm of the entire fight with absolute, calculated efficiency. But the creature refuses to lay down and die, constantly throwing counters, forcing our hero to constantly pivot his battle strategy on the fly. Then the monster casually remarks something that changes everything. He reveals he only used 30% of his power to dodge system detection, keeping himself hidden from the system while retaining the absolute upper hand. Hearing this, Chumo just chuckles and drops his own massive bomb. He calmly replies that he was only using 20% of his own power. The beast is furious at the disrespect and instantly starts arguing, desperately trying to protect his bruised ego and prove his absolute dominance. He completely refuses to believe a human could match him. With tensions boiling over, their powers clash in a spectacular explosion of pure energy, sending shockwaves through the entire arena. Seeing this crazy display, spectators realize they vastly underestimated these guys. They thought the first world experts were strong, but Chumo is on a different level. Seriously, can we just appreciate how insane his combat style is? The chat goes wild, pledging to donate all their coins to him. They are fully backing him to win this life or death match. But of course, there is always that one hater. A jealous viewer mutters that they should save their money for someone else, which that move was immediately met with a wave of angry criticism from the crowd. The greedy mercenaries actually begged the others not to hand over any coins. They wanted the monsters to tear the young man apart right then and there. With him dead, they could easily take control of this entire dangerous situation. But then the third brother suddenly decided to pack up and leave. He claimed he had to go home to feed his cat, leaving everyone utterly speechless. They were annoyed, but sure his power would vanish once he left the secret world. The crowd comforted themselves by believing his massive influence would fade with his strength. They desperately hoped that losing his magic would finally make him powerless. Once that happened, he would stop being a major threat to them. Finally, they could all breathe a collective sigh of relief and move on. They felt sure the danger would disappear the second his power was gone. Yet these dark worries kept nagging at the back of their minds. They constantly fretted over a chaotic future they could no longer fully control. Soon after, the mercenaries politely asked Boss Shu for permission to leave early. They claimed they had some urgent personal business that simply could not wait. Suddenly, a loud system prompt announced that the boss's power surpassed the limit. This unexpected warning instantly sent a wave of shock through the entire crowd. It was clear that a completely unpredictable disaster was about to unfold. Surprisingly, they managed to track down the terrifying beast almost immediately. Its sudden appearance threatened to completely derail their plans and escalate the danger. The young man calmly told his ally not to panic just yet. He pointed out they still had 1 full minute to wrap up this fight. If they stayed focused and managed their time, they could still win. That meant giving it everything they had and fighting until the very end. No running away, just pure, raw effort to secure a final victory. Suddenly, the digital countdown began ticking down, spiking the tension in the room. Every single second mattered now, and their very survival hung in the balance. Meanwhile, a heavy and suffocating silence settled deep over Boss Shu's private office. The air was thick with tension as they waited for a crucial decision. Even the slightest sound felt deafening in the quiet room. Shu realized too late that those slippery mercenaries had vanished at the last second. They had played him perfectly, escaping his grasp and slipping out of control. Now he was left completely alone to deal with the messy aftermath. Thankfully, one brave master stepped forward, ready to risk everything to help. He showed incredible resolve, standing firm to protect those who were still in danger. Chumo's fierce battle was already going way better than anyone had ever expected. Still, to be absolutely safe, they needed to summon reinforcements immediately. The mercenary was deeply confused. Did Shu seriously want to disgrace Mr. Lei? Dragging his family into a scandal over a failed amusement park seemed extreme. If they actually fought him, they knew his raw strength would not save him. No matter how skilled he was, his opponents were simply on another level. Meanwhile, the clock was still ticking down relentlessly. Only 20 seconds remained on the clock, pushing the tension to its absolute limit. Every remaining fighter had to move with lightning speed to survive this. The tension is thick, wild excitement and dread fill the air. Every tiny sound feels like a matter of life or death. Suddenly, a 5-second countdown flashes on screen. Everything blurs into chaos as onlookers scramble to keep up. Just watch those final 3 seconds. An insane surge of energy explodes from the cultivator toward his foe. It hits with devastating force. Right then, the system alerts everyone. The final boss has officially been taken down by our hero, Chumo. This is ultimate proof of his unmatched strength and battle skill. He stands completely still, staring at the fallen monster. Looking over its giant body, he processes the aftermath of this clash. Now he has to figure out how this victory changes everything. The entire crowd is shocked, reacting in completely different ways. Half of them cheer his power, while others grumble in disbelief. They call it luck, totally skeptical of what just happened. But the scoreboard is clear. Chumo easily dominates the coin rankings. It proves he is not just strong, but smarter than everyone else. Naturally, the gossip starts. Everyone has a different theory. They are desperately trying to figure out how he became so powerful. Is it raw genius, or is some hidden ability at play? Just then, a private notification pops up about his coin balance. He can use them to buy gear in the secret world store. This opens up crazy new options, but Chumo is confused. Staring at his balance, he wonders where the other 1.5 million coins went. Did the system take a massive cut, or is this some tax? He tries to find an explanation when his female friend rushes over. She is in absolute shock that he actually managed to kill that wolf-headed beast solo. That victory blew her away. She quickly says she feels fine. Apparently, completing the quest automatically heals all of their active wounds. It fully restores their health. Chumo realizes these trials have great benefits. They are the perfect chance to train and gain valuable experience. He gets to test his limits in truly dangerous situations. Amazingly, he did not take a single hit, not even a scratch. That takes incredible focus and the ability to dodge every threat. Tun watches him, thinking that with power like this, they could rule. He sees the insane potential of what his friend can do. But Chumo refuses to listen. He completely shrugs off the praise. He still considers himself a perfectly ordinary guy with some luck. He has no idea how terrifying his actual power really is. Suddenly, the sky above them begins to lose its color, fading fast. An eerie chill fills the air, leaving everyone on high alert. Something is seriously wrong. There is only one explanation for this. The entire secret world is literally crumbling apart around them. The system is collapsing, and they need to get out now. Back in the real world, the very first thing Tun wants is answers. Meanwhile, the exhausted female cultivator finally gets a chance to rest and wash up. Those grueling trials in the secret world took a massive toll on her body. Only half a day had passed, but to them, it felt like an entire month. The endless battles and constant tension made every single second feel like an eternity. Sensing the heavy mood, her companion asks him to stop acting so tough. She wants him to be honest about the emotions he is hiding. He can't just ignore the weight of what they went through. Suddenly, a notification panel flashes with extra rewards for completing their dangerous mission. The young trainee stands ready, fully prepared for whatever crazy task comes next. Finally, the cultivators step through the portal and return to the real world. The sudden shift from virtual space to reality leaves everyone feeling a bit dazed. Instantly, a massive crowd rushes toward Chumo, shoving phones directly into his face. Everyone wants a quick video for TikTok, turning the street into complete chaos. But the young cultivator is not thrilled by this sudden wave of massive attention. The overwhelming noise and crowd only make him feel deeply uncomfortable inside. His companion smiles, imagining that major brands will soon be begging to hire him. He could easily become the face of their next big global marketing campaigns. Hearing this actually sparks his interest, giving him a sudden hope. A deal like that means he would finally have a way to make real money. He could easily pay for his sick sister's hospital bills without any more stress. Seeing his struggle, Tun steps up and offers a helping hand. He has deep connections with high-level medical doctors and elite healing cultivators. They can easily provide the expert medical support his sister needs. Deeply grateful, Chumo promises to repay every single cent of the medical costs. He will make things right once his financial situation is fully sorted out. For now, the exhausted team decides to hail a taxi and head out. They just want to grab a quick bite and rest before their next big move. But before they can even order, a strange car suddenly pulls up right beside them. This is highly suspicious, especially since they hadn't even called for a ride yet. He confirmed the order, sending a wave of uneasy shock through the entire crowd. Chumo instantly grew tense, knowing this whole situation could spiral into complete chaos. He tracked every single movement nearby, bracing himself for whatever nightmare might happen next. Stepping out of the car, the driver delivered Boss Shu's personal invitation. Boss wanted the young man at his office to settle their past misunderstandings. They needed to clear the air face-to-face. Our hero just shrugs. He promised to visit tomorrow, claiming he had urgent business to handle first. Crucial matters, some things simply could not wait. But the employee had a much darker message to deliver from his boss. The sheer weight of the threat makes the messenger tremble. Unwilling to play these games, the young man demanded the truth immediately. Spit it out, he says, no sugarcoating, no holding back. He needed to know exactly what he was dealing with right now. That is when the driver dropped the bomb. His sister was with them. If he did not show up, things could get very ugly for her. Panic hits, but Chumo is already preparing to strike. He never expected them to sink to such a pathetic and dirty level. Showing a complete lack of morals in everything they did, honestly, he was absolutely furious, fighting with everything he had not to lose his mind. Or explode right then and there in this heated moment, the terrified worker. Shook with fear, stammering that he was only following instructions. Desperate to save himself, he begged them to understand his position and avoid getting killed. Chumo decided to head straight to the office, realizing this was his perfect chance to handle this mess directly and get answers. Meanwhile, the director was waiting anxiously inside his private office, trying to prepare himself for a very tense face-to-face confrontation with them. He wanted to clear up any misunderstandings and end this nightmare quickly. At the same time, the female companion agreed to keep a secret. She promised not to say that the driver had brought her along, saving everyone from awkward questions down the line. The worker just wanted to keep his job. At his age, starting over was almost impossible, so he desperately needed this steady paycheck to survive. Chumo gently asked the girl to stay behind and wait out of danger, but she flatly refused. There was no way she would sit on the sidelines while he went into danger, besides in her mind his insane combat skills that he brought back from the outside world were not very useful here. It did not really help solve normal, everyday life problems or office politics. So on the way, she texted some cultivator friends who were waiting nearby just in case they needed serious backup. Talk about smart planning. Meanwhile, the nervous director was acting extremely twitchy, his hands shaking as his anxiety completely took over. He could barely speak, showing just how terrified he truly was. The hired mercenary tried to calm him down, urging him to keep it together, so they could successfully pull off this highly dangerous plan. To the mercenary, a normal guy like the director had no business fighting anyway. He should just sit back and let the professionals handle the action. After all, the mercenaries knew that while cultivators were incredibly strong, even these absolute monsters still had a massive, fatal weakness. Their spiritual energy depended entirely on their mental focus and peace of mind. And that is exactly why they kidnapped his sister, to break his concentration, weaken his raw power, and use her as the ultimate hostage. Outside, all the office staff were told to act completely normal. Pretend it was just another regular workday to avoid raising any suspicion. Still, the director was terrified of things getting way too bloody. He knew a massive body count would destroy his business for good, bringing ruin and ending his career, but the arrogant mercenary just laughed it off, telling him to put on a brave face. They could not let Chumo smell fear or get any leverage. Nodding, Shu promised to do everything possible to control his nerves, vowing not to let his panic show when the showdown finally started. And right on cue, our hero was already marching inside. He heads straight to the office alone, determined to personally make sure his sister is safe. She had to be unharmed, completely untouched by whatever dirty game they were playing. He tells his trusted friend to wait downstairs, just in case things take a turn for the worst. That way, she can watch his back and assist him from the outside. She is terrified for him, but promises to stay on high alert. She vows to rush in the second her backup arrives to support him. Suddenly, the office door swings open quietly, signaling that Chumo has finally arrived. Instantly, the entire room freezes up, the heavy atmosphere thick enough to choke on. Everyone prepares for the inevitable, tense confrontation, stepping inside. Chumo sweeps his gaze across the room, analyzing every single detail of the space. He is checking the crowd, trying to read their real motives and hidden traps. The director greets him warmly and immediately asks about his mysterious journey. He wants every little detail of the secret world, fishing for valuable info. But Chumo is not here to play nice. The young man refuses to waste a single breath on small talk and demands to know where his sister is. He wants answers now, no more games. The manager smiles, suggesting they put all their past misunderstandings behind them. He even promises to pay a massive sum of money to settle everything quietly. All he wants is a peaceful resolution, but Chumo steps closer, making it crystal clear that they only talk once his sister is safely released first. Her safety is non-negotiable, but the manager immediately scoffs at this. He demands solid proof first, wanting some leverage to guarantee Chumo will cooperate. He refuses to budge without absolute proof that his own back is covered. If not, he threatens to call Joe's assistant from the powerful consortium. He plans to use their massive influence to force Chumo into compliance. And here is where Chumo completely snaps. His patience is officially gone. A monstrous crushing aura explodes from his body, flooding the entire room. It's a clear warning he is ready to tear this place apart. Advisor stands frozen, completely unable to comprehend the sheer scale of Chumo's power. This level of pure rage and terrifying pressure is completely abnormal. He cannot even take a step because his sixth sense is screaming at him. It's warning him of absolute, imminent death if he dares to provoke this monster. Chumo looks around and coldly asks if Joe was also behind his sister's kidnapping. He needs to know exactly who is an enemy and who is a friend. Hearing this, Joe quickly panics and defends himself, claiming there is a massive misunderstanding. He insists he only showed up because he found out about their dirty, underhanded tactics. He claims he is actually here to help restore justice and protect the innocent. Hearing the advisor's shocking words, Boss Shu is completely stunned. He suddenly realizes he has zero allies left and must face this nightmare alone. Terrified, the boss eagerly promises to bring Chumo's sister back within minutes. He continuously bows and begs for forgiveness, cursing his own foolish actions. Turns out the advisor had a secret treasure that allowed him to sense danger. His instincts are sharp as a razor, and they never, ever lie. He knows this young cultivator is a walking god compared to them. Now the advisor is dying to uncover the secrets behind Chumo's incredible strength. Buying time was his only real play. Avoid conflict, the director had absolutely no idea what garbage Joe was talking about or why he suddenly feared this total nobody. It made zero sense to him. He realized the consortium was playing a dirty trick they did not fear. Him, not even his promise of real freedom scared them. Joe saw through his pathetic act. The man was pretending to be a god and calmly explained that he was really just a basic thug. Joe took a different approach, politely asking the advisor to remind him what exactly lay under the amusement park. Hearing that, the man flew into a rage. He pressed a sharp blade straight against his throat with deadly intent. Unfazed, Chumo ordered the director to keep talking without stopping. Do not dodge the question, tell everything. Under pressure, he confessed a secret underground shelter lay there, built by the consortium. He mentioned multiple bases existed, other elites prepared for disaster. They knew about the monster attack. Listening to this nonsense, Chumo reached a simple conclusion. He did not care, not even slightly. It did not bother him. Meanwhile, Joe uncovered the manager's secret plot. He had gathered massive files, planning to kidnap Chumo's little sister. He wanted to frame Chumo. Unbuttoning his jacket, the man declared that there was absolutely no room to negotiate. He would drag them down. He held a powerful Kai suppression device, designed to weaken both hunters and cultivators. Boss Shu knew they would be heavily weakened. He was totally confident. He had never been underestimated. They definitely did not see this coming. However, the advisor knew that even with his combat power slightly drained, a regular human stood zero chance against him, but the boss planned something else entirely. He had secretly rigged the building with massive explosives. The entire amusement park was wired. One button press would end everything. Time was up. Without wasting a single heartbeat, Joe made his move. He thrust the sharp blade straight into the villain's heart. It was the only brutal way to stop him and protect innocent lives. The plan succeeded. The leader collapsed, unable to trigger the deadly explosions. His sick scheme was ruined, but wait, did they celebrate too early? The dying boss turned out to be far more twisted than imagined. With his final breath, he wheezed that the detonator was inside his chest. Embedded right in his heart, it was too late to run, no escape. Fiery doom threatened everyone still trapped deep inside the collapsing building. Crimson flames instantly swallowed the entire room, raging with absolute fury. Inferno-level heat ripped through walls, creating absolute chaos and panic. Smoke blinded them. Then, the office detonated with a massive explosion. A giant cloud of dark ash erupted upward, completely blotting out the afternoon sun. Dust settled everywhere. Waking up in the wreckage, the advisor looked around. He was completely unhurt, but escaping the burning ruins seemed impossible. Fire blocked every exit. Death was certain, but then he saw Chumo. Somehow Chumo had dragged him out alive. It was a complete miracle. Sensing his perfect opportunity in the confusion, Joe prepared to strike. To him, the player seemed to be at his absolute weakest, a perfect chance to strike. Exposing every secret. Meanwhile, the youth stared at the explosive. A bomb powerful enough to instantly vaporize everything, bringing this entire building crumbling down. Meanwhile, the weak advisor. The man proved so fragile that he simply could not handle this crushing pressure. Suddenly blacking out right there in front of everyone, while the hostile eyes tracked his every move, the hero kept worrying about Yudong. Was his friend actually safe, or did something tragic happen, picking up the bizarre mysterious? Holding the object, Chumo wanted to unlock its hidden secrets all by himself. First, he forced himself to swallow his deep dread, and for 10 long, painful years, he relived that exact same torment, feeling the agonizing pain over and over. The tragedy crushed him long ago. Now he dreamed of becoming a legendary, ruthless bounty hunter, rather than some ignored, useless advisor. Indeed, he held absolutely zero authority in this faction. Right now, he gripped a deadly weapon. The venom of a winged viper, a poison that instantly shreds his nervous system, instantly killing even the strongest beasts. Thousands of countless cultivators had died for this priceless, ancient treasure, which could only be unearthed in the deadliest ruins of the forgotten continent. But right now, this legendary artifact completely betrayed its master. It failed him utterly, dragging him straight into a nightmare of unpredictable. With danger looming, Chumo could not comprehend this disaster, since his spiritual energy was supposed to be completely stable and perfectly under control. Instead, it went wild. Even worse, the entire strike rebounded straight back toward his face. Talk about a total disaster. He was actually in a position. He was about to vaporize himself. Suddenly, Chumo felt a very sharp, searing pain ripped through his shoulder, leaving him utterly baffled by what just hit him. Desperate for relief, he realized he urgently needed to get some intense therapy to loosen his locked joints and ease all the crushing, painful tension. Of this built-up tension, the advisor certainly did not want to die, but his strength was rapidly fading away second by second, leaving him defenseless against the looming danger. Witnessing the man such a wretched state, the player rushed over to ask what happened. Deeply worried about all the dark blood he was suddenly coughing up in front of him, but Chumo had never even heard of such a strange item before. So he carefully analyzed it, trying to figure out if it was dangerous or beneficial to him. Looking closer, the young man realized that it was typically used for treating some pretty fatal, critical injuries, but the fading advisor had already chosen his own incredibly dark path. He wanted to control his final breath, deciding to end his own life by driving that lethal venom straight into his heart instead of waiting for any help. Helplessly, he lay there, coughing up blood until he slipped away entirely, falling into freezing darkness. And this is where things get really weird. Chumo had actually left our reality, drifting into a bizarre void where the line between living and dying completely vanished. Meanwhile, in another location entirely, Tong paced back and forth, terrified that her dear friend was trapped inside. The sudden explosion had ripped through the structure, leaving him in grave danger. But to some, the use of basic dynamite meant the attacker was no cultivator, just a regular human trying to play God with cheap gunpowder. A woman quickly hissed for silence before their panic made things worse. Pointless chatter was only going to feed the rising dread in the air. Suddenly, a scout raised his arm and pointed straight ahead. He caught sight of the kid, moving through the thick smoke. But wait, he was carrying a limp figure in his arms. Nobody could recognize the bloody person or guess if they were even still breathing. Without hesitation, he tossed the body onto the cold concrete. He did not even spare a glance back, marching forward with total confidence. The young man walked right up to a waiting crowd and bowed. He offered his deepest thanks to Yudong and the others for coming. Their quick response to his plea for backup meant everything to him. Instantly, his allies showered him with praise for his insane bravery. They praised him, a true hero who saved them all from doom. But Chumo did not care about praise. His mind was elsewhere. He needed to hand over a legendary healing potion to the advisor. He wanted the absolute truth about his sister's current location in return. Yet to the girl's friends, the scene looked incredibly dark and twisted. It seemed like he had come to beat the answers out of him. Every single move had to be calculated with lightning speed from now on. One slip and it would mean instant death for the hostage. If he died, the trail to his sister would vanish forever. To rescue his sister now, he would have to pull off a desperate gamble. Only the most extreme measures could get past these tight defenses. The informant trembled with pure terror under Chumo's heavy, cold stare. He was terrified that the young warrior would end him right there. So the allies agreed to pool their strength for the ultimate search. Together, they prepared to venture deep into dangerous and uncharted territory. They would find her, no matter what stood in their way. Then the massive metal office door slowly began to slide open. A harsh, cold glare from the hallway spilled into the dark room. They had finally located his sister, along with the minions of Boss Shu. The hunters kept the goons pinned down, preventing any cheap tricks. Meanwhile, the entire city of Donghai was in absolute chaos. Chumo's massive search party was sweeping through every single street. Their sheer numbers struck deep dread into the hearts of everyone. Even the 4 legendary cultivator sects were closely watching this mess. They knew the outcome could completely flip the region's balance of power. This rescue group held massive sway over the ordinary citizens here. Every single move they made was bound to cause a huge ripple. Huge corporate empires were also keeping tabs on this bloody conflict. They wanted to see how the secret world's power would shift next. With the sudden invasion throwing everything into chaos, no one knew what was coming next. Everyone was terrified of what tomorrow might bring. Standing right beside his friend, the young guy genuinely thanks them for their help. He even tries to hand over a small gift as a token of appreciation. But she quietly points out the cold truth: they probably think he is a monster. They know he has enough power to wipe them out, and that terrifies them. That sheer force makes everyone walk on eggshells around him, though Chumo is clueless. He has absolutely no idea why they are so afraid of him. After all, he never went out of his way to threaten anyone. But Tun skips the explanations and practically begs him to visit his sister. She wants him out of there before things get awkward and tensions boil over. Something is wrong. The nearby rescuers instantly feel it. A heavy, monstrous aura hits them, sending a cold shiver down their spines. This chilling warning signals real danger is heading their way. This energy feels just like the chaotic beasts from that hidden space. It is wildly unstable, fluctuating, and keeping everyone on high alert. The dread is suffocating. Meanwhile, Chumo's sister remains trapped in a deep coma. She drifted off months ago from a bizarre sickness that defies normal medicine. Honestly, it is probably connected to the monster invasion, slowly creeping into Earth. Their current hideout is tucked away deep in the isolated mountains. Dense forests surround the cabin, with only the wind whispering through the trees. It feels totally cut off from civilization, but Tun welcomed them inside anyway. She offered up her spacious, warm room so they could finally relax. And honestly, that quiet vibe is just the calm before the storm. There is a terrifying chance the consortium cut a deal with another world. If so, these beasts have been roaming Earth, secretly spreading chaos for ages. Chumo suspects the corrupt higher-ups are definitely pulling the strings here. His promised 2 million reward got slashed to just 400,000. He feels completely ripped off, but Tun assures him there might be a mistake. She promises him that the missing funds are likely just a technical glitch. A simple glitch, nothing more, she insists. Even so, the sheer scale of this conspiracy sends shivers down her spine. Terrible visions flash in her mind, and her heart just won't stop pounding. Sensing the tension, our hero decides to scout out a different spot tonight. He scans the dark streets, searching for any quiet place to crash. Meanwhile, Tun explains that her sister actually possesses an incredibly tough body. Anyone else would have been instantly crushed by that dark energy. But to fully purge the corruption, she needs to utilize specialized Kai techniques. To help out, Chumo steps up and hands over his own coins for rent. He just wants to secure a safe room and avoid any landlord drama. Tun figured 2,000 or 3,000 coins would easily cover all expenses. That small amount should easily keep their stay peaceful and completely hassle-free. But Chumo drops a massive 60,000 fate coins right into the account. The sheer amount leaves her absolutely speechless and incredibly overwhelmed. He simply has no use for them anymore, so why not? To boost his combat power, though trading them for artifacts was always an option. He just had no idea if they would actually be useful during a fight. Plus, there was no longer any need to turn his points into cash for his sister, especially since Tun was always ready to back them up with real support. If his sister managed to grow stronger down the road, she could easily protect them, ensuring they stayed safe from any threats. But danger was looming. That dual cultivator only had the power of a 1,000-year-old monster, meaning even deadlier beasts could show up. The stress was eating away at him, though he hid it from everyone. He knew relying on the system forever was a dangerous trap, because once the trial wrapped up, his next reward might just be a useless piece of meat. Instead of a helpful pet, Meanwhile, across town, a restaurant is getting pretty chaotic. Some loudmouthed guy is screaming at the servers, ruining everyone's peaceful dinner. It turns out this absolute menace is none other than young Mr. Lee, who keeps glaring at the kitchen, completely starving and losing his mind. The guy is beyond impatient, making a massive scene for no good reason. Everyone instantly recognizes him as the arrogant, ultra-rich heir of the Lee consortium. He is used to getting his way, completely ignoring the other diners. Little do they know, this is the brat who ruined Chumo's amusement park project and exposed their secret hideouts to everyone. The massive leak sparked a giant scandal, sending shockwaves through the internet. Rumors claimed these groups only cared about survival. But the powerful elites quickly deleted the posts to keep the peace. Suddenly, the entire restaurant falls dead silent as a new figure walks in. When Lei enters, everyone is instantly paralyzed by a mix of fear and deep respect. His sheer presence completely freezes the room, shifting the entire atmosphere. The spoiled brother asks Lei what he is doing here after so long. He tries to act casual, asking about his brother's life and what he has been up to. But Lei does not say a single word back to his annoying sibling. Instead, he coldly commands his guards to drag the young man away. No explanations given, he is just left there shivering in pure, helpless terror. Just then, Hanlon speaks up, begging the guards to wait just a quick second. He is looking nervously at his plate, desperate to at least taste his steak first. Next thing we know, heavy punches are raining down on him in the dark. He can only flinch and cover his head as the brutal beating continues. Nothing but pain and chaos. Then his brother speaks up. This beating is a direct lesson for his stupid mistakes and reckless behavior. He needs to learn his place and never cause this kind of trouble again. His real crime was picking a fight with Chumo and leaving him alive. That stupid half-measure let the entire situation spiral completely out of hand. Now, instead of handling actual business, Lei has to waste his time. He has to clean up after this utterly useless excuse of a brother. Worse yet, it was their father's idea to teach him a lesson. So there is zero room for guilt. Nothing is going to change anyway. And with that, he turns around, leaving his bruised brother on the floor. He just lay there, left with his thoughts to reflect on his actions. The consequences of his behavior, hearing footsteps, he instantly thought his brother had finally returned home after a long absence. His heart fluttered with excitement, but in reality, it turned out to be Shaju, who quietly approached the room, leaving Hanlon with a mix of surprise and relief at this sudden encounter. He had stayed there since being dragged into the dark alley and brutally beaten, each step echoing with sharp pain and vivid memories of that day. In Lee's mind, he was the one who should have stood at the very center of the secret world, gaining massive power and influence, yet he turned down that chance, choosing to stay in the shadows. He never became a savior because he spent all his time investigating a conspiracy by major financial groups, unable to trust anyone, not even those closest to him. Hanlon knew his comrade was incredibly strong and capable, but he himself was powerless, and his surveillance only brought a host of new, unpredictable problems. As for himself, he bought vital information with the lives of his allies, ignoring the heavy grief and losses left behind after every operation. The names of everyone who died or got hurt alongside him constantly swirled in his mind, leaving a bitter mark and a heavy burden of guilt. Old Chia, who was nearly 70, chose a lethal mission at Bayang Base, instead of playing with his grandson at home, acting as their decoy. Even though it was his grandson's birthday that day, Zhang Anna was only 16. When he went to the Chen Consortium on a mission, he never returned home, leaving his family in constant fear. Some of them were disciples of small sects, beginners or trainees, but most were just ordinary people without any special abilities, making them highly vulnerable. If he had enough men, he never would have hired that rogue assassin Cultivator. But even that killer died within a month, failing to complete a single mission. In the end, he never expected Chumo to be this incredibly strong. While trying to hide out in the park, everything went completely off course and failed. That is exactly why the man decided to find Joe, believing that perhaps he himself should be the next victim and die in this chaos, threatening everyone around them. Hanlon had no regrets about the dead or his choices, and if the situation demanded it, he was ready to die for the cause he believed was right. Joe, however, agreed to work together, but only under close Supervision, monitoring his every move to avoid unpredictable consequences and danger. Then they were ready to move on to their very first task. Since the deadly commander of the monster vanguard was due to arrive tomorrow, and whether they could avert this disaster depended entirely on their success. According to the information received, a certain consortium possessed a transdimensional stone that allowed communication with other worlds and the transport of a small number of monsters to Earth. That commander likely possessed a power equivalent to a monster of 2,000 years, making him an extremely. They were the first to know. Had the beast reached its destination, and had those plans succeeded, the entire world would have faced a devastating wave of total destruction. Total chaos. They needed a secure staging ground to coordinate their next moves. That was Donghai, chosen specifically because it was safe and strategic. Liu's older brother was supposed to meet them at the rendezvous point, planning to weaponize the beast to utterly destroy Chumo in a flash. They would watch from the shadows, set a trap. Silence filled the house. Inside the house, where everyone had already drifted into a deep sleep, only the faint whisper of the night wind drifted through the quiet rooms. Utterly exhausted from their brutal shift, the tired rescuers finally slept. Muscles aching, they enjoyed this rare moment of calm before the storm. Then the system chimed. The boy's pet would arrive in 8 hours. Tension spiked, leaving everyone around on edge with heavy anticipation. Elsewhere, the ruler made his move, naming the heir as his commander. This controversial choice instantly outraged the veteran officers and nobles alike. To them, her elite team was just a complete joke. She had merely flattered her way to the top with cheap words. But her father's assistant finally arrived on the scene to help. He did all the heavy lifting, yet she received all the praise. An argument flared over the credit, quickly turning into an uncontrollable brawl. The brutal fist fight raged on with no end in sight until the central crystal suddenly glowed. Right in the center of the hall, a blinding light burst forth. Magic flooded the room, wrapping the surroundings in a mystical aura. The creature explained that the heavy relic required activation to function. Only then could she use its massive magical power to journey to Earth. Turning to Anji, it revealed that their monster clan was born weak. Every single one of them had to train hard just to survive. Without strength, elite beasts would endlessly torment them, preying on them constantly for their own cruel and humiliating amusement. The heir looked down, confessing she was deeply worried about her assistant. She feared the apex monsters would hunt him down once she left. Her companion sighed, pointing out she had already done everything she could. She gave the weak a fighting chance, and that was more than enough. Now she had to leave. This was her moment to prove everything. Only by completing the ruler's grand task could they prove their true worth. High-level entities despised her, and a deadly trap was likely waiting ahead. If she fell into an ambush, her allies would have to act, ready to step in and take absolute control of any dangerous situation. Still, the ruler chose her. He believed in her hidden potential, knowing she could handle this complex and dangerous mission with determination. Before parting, she quietly asked Anjay to take care of himself and stay safe. Her voice held a rare, soft warmth, showing her true feelings. The creature watched in silence, desperately hoping she would return safely. Time was up, and the heavy atmosphere grew even more intense. The stone sealed shut with a blinding flash, and the journey began. Time to act. Suddenly, the girl feels an unexpected surge. The legendary power of a 300-year-old monster floods her veins. She finally realizes the terrifying scale of what she can actually do. Right then, the system alerts him. His loyal pet has finally arrived. But there is a catch. This creature might be too dangerous to control. Its wild, unpredictable strength could turn on its own master. Just waking up, Chumo couldn't grasp why everything was happening so early. He didn't even know where to wait for his delivery, feeling utterly lost. Suddenly, a portal burst open, glowing right in front of him. The rift crackled with a dangerous, wondrous magic that practically pulled him inside. A tiny figure leapt out, but her body had already shrunk. This made her incredibly swift, her tiny presence nearly invisible in the room. Taking a closer look at her, Chumo reached a surprising conclusion. He wasn't dealing with a pet at all. Nope, it's a completely baffled little girl. She was completely baffling. Then Ayr slowly realized where she was standing. Originally, she thought she was in a normal human home, not a cultivator's. Now she stood surrounded by strange, mystical objects and bizarre alien things. Having lost all her power, Ire had no idea how to act, feeling completely helpless. She was terrified of the unknown, but she saw only one way out. Taking this cultivator hostage was the only way to guarantee her own survival. Seizing the moment, Ire launched a sudden, aggressive attack straight at him. She channeled all her remaining speed and skills into one devastating strike. Her eyes flared with fierce determination, but her tiny body betrayed her. Too small, too fragile, she couldn't back up that deadly stare. Catching her easily by her dress, Chumo warned her that she could get hurt. He told her there was no need to act so recklessly and risk her life. Just then Tong Tong peeked inside, startled by the sudden racket in the room. Terrified they were under attack, she cautiously scanned the area for danger. An unfamiliar child cradled in her companion's arms instantly filled her with sudden panic. This entire situation was completely unexpected. Instantly, lights flooded the dark corridors, chasing the fleeing shadows straight into the corners. He quickly explained that she had absolutely no idea how she ended up there, her trembling voice filled with shock and fear. She even openly accused the young man of doing weird things to her. Her sharp, indignant words forced everyone present to listen closely. Suddenly, the system screen popped up with the pet's profile detailing its exact size and dietary requirements. Chumo warned everyone that the kid was actually a monster. His cold, unquestionable voice left zero room for doubt. But the girl knew all she could do was play dumb. To endure the humiliation, she hid her true mind from everyone, widening her eyes in pretend shock. The little child, who those scary monsters were, sounding completely innocent and clueless. Meanwhile, the pet was fully prepared to execute its deadly strike instantly. The pet tensed up, ready to strike at his master's slightest command. But standing there was just a terrified girl with fluffy beast ears. Trembling with shock and surprise, she stared ahead with wide, terrified eyes. He was so incredibly soft that her hand reached out all on its own. She just wanted to pet him, completely unable to hide her delight. Overflowing with joy, she secretly wished she could keep the adorable creature. But the young man quickly stepped in and ruined the warm moment. He coldly reminded her that this beast was a dangerous 1,000-year-old monster. The threat remained, forcing them to watch the situation with extreme caution. The ferret looked incredibly miserable with how they were talking about him. His eyes narrowed as his body tensed, preparing to defend his life. With tears in his eyes, he whimpered that the girl was just a sacrifice. She had absolutely no desire to fight in their brutal and dangerous wars. Begging for freedom, she convinced Chumo that she might actually be quite useful. He decided to help her first and test her potential later on. Keeping her safe would be his top priority for the next step. Later, Chumo brought the girl to his sister, desperate for medical aid. His sister had been unconscious for months and needed urgent treatment. But the girl explained that humans and monsters are physically completely different. Since she knew nothing of human medicine, she could not save her. Hearing this, Air scowled. She argued that monsters would never have harmed the girl in this specific way. Something else was happening, her resolute voice carrying pure disgust. She revealed that before the secret world opened, a human group approached them. A shady human consortium was secretly researching human and monster cell fusion. Catching these corrupt criminals would be incredibly dangerous for anyone involved. It was a deadly test that threatened the lives of everyone. Chumo swore he would never forgive whoever did this. If she helped him, he promised to grant her absolute freedom in return. Without any conditions, she then revealed that consortium agents were waiting on Earth. If they could contact those agents, they would find a solid lead. But to do that, they had to fight their way through a battlefield. The commander knew she still had critical missions ahead. She decided to use the consortium to eliminate those two troublesome cultivators. This would secure her victory. Meanwhile, 2 hours passed. The creature had not arrived yet, and he kept listening closely. He strained to catch any noise that might give her away. Their tracking stone worked perfectly, leaving them completely baffled. No one could understand why it was behaving so strangely. Suddenly, a transmission from Commander Air flashed on their screens. Her message forced them to immediately abandon their plans. Her message confirmed that she had already arrived safely in the city. But a chaotic disturbance had broken out right at her landing site. This left everyone panicked, forcing the older brother to demand backup. He ordered more troops to secure the area and control the situation. The situation was spiraling fast, getting more unpredictable by the second. He knew he had to figure out the exact cause of this. Teleportation failure and write up a full report for the Alliance, explaining everything to make sure this kind of screw-up never happens again. Zhao top assistant stood ready to handle the heavy lifting, keeping things moving and making sure every single order went down perfectly. Through the thick tension, they couldn't forget that these arriving beasts were lethal, and a single bad call meant game over. The squad waited on the ground, tense and fully armed. Ordered to watch their behavior, these things were killers. Approaching them, the heir asked about these bloodthirsty beasts, trying to size up the actual threat before making any moves. The entire group just stood there, frozen in shock. They couldn't comprehend how a tiny girl had wandered all this way, right into their lockdown zone, sending waves of panic and shock through them. Zhao quickly stepped up, telling her to get out of this dangerous area immediately. One wrong move here is fatal. He was not risking her life. But the commander just smiled, asking if he was really that unhappy to see her. She casually suggested they head back home, hoping to cut through the mounting tension. Zhao stared in absolute shock as he recognized the figure standing there. It was Miss Ace herself, the legendary figure they had been waiting for all along. His mind was racing right now, shock, excitement, total chaos. Instantly, everyone nearby dropped to their knees to welcome her, showing absolute respect because her arrival changed everything in this place. Miss Ace scanned the crowd, instantly realizing they were all bounty hunters, since their rough energy felt nothing like the refined power of cultivators. This suspicion made her keep a very close eye on their movements. Zhao stepped forward, explaining that their high ranks unlocked top-tier missions, and she could handpick absolutely any assignment she wanted right now. Looking them over, she coldly ordered 2 ordinary cultivators to be executed, proving to everyone that no one was above her rules. Boss Jia stepped up, reminding them they were here on a critical mission, straight from Donghai, so everyone had to execute their roles flawlessly. And trust me, they needed absolute perfection to ensure this operation succeeded. A monster-level cultivator with thousands of years of combat power had breached the secret world, and they couldn't let him clear it. Knowing this would cause massive trouble for her home turf, she decided to handle this massive problem herself, personally. Representing the consortium, the leading man personally stepped forward to thank her, deeply grateful for her bravery in taking on such a deadly threat. She demanded to know every single detail about this mysterious cultivator, and he quickly revealed that the target was Chumo. Her attention locked on the name Chumo as she demanded more details. Then she pointed off to the side and asked a sudden question. Does the guy they are looking for look exactly like that? She watched the faces around her to confirm her suspicions as the young man approached. He walked toward them with slow, measured steps, yet his presence radiated absolute power. His confidence filled the air. Suddenly, the young lady bolted forward like a wild predator. She looked just like a monster targeting a high-level cultivator. Her charge was blinding. Her strikes were incredibly fast, showing off her immense raw physical strength. No hesitation, the panicked apprentice scrambled to give him the update. She explained that these people from the powerful consortium were standing right there. She claimed she brought them straight to him, desperately trying to justify her actions. Suddenly, a system notification flashed, granting him exclusive rewards for mentoring his protege. The system officially acknowledged his efforts, yet he still felt highly skeptical. He had no idea if the 5 points he just received were actually worth anything. Was this a massive jackpot, or did the system just hand him pocket change? Meanwhile, she pulled up the local radar and scrutinized every single hunter nearby. Most of these low-level players were absolute trash, posing zero threat to her master. Deep down, the girl could not comprehend why her master constantly caused such trouble. Still, it felt like taking down this overpowered monster was a completely impossible task. Chumo stepped slightly closer, offering her some rare praise for a job well done. He agreed to honor his side of the bargain, promising that he would not kill her. Meanwhile, the Alliance leaders could not fathom how this terrifying beast was linked to him. The connection between the deadly creature and the cultivator made absolutely no sense. A ticking bomb, they knew their time was officially up. They did not even bother to hide their sheer panic or filter their desperate thoughts. They discussed desperate plans on how to take down Chumo. Then Zhao stepped forward. Zhao apologized deeply, calmly explaining that they never knew his actual, terrifying identity. The entire assassination plot had actually been cooked up by the leadership of two worlds. Ere yelled out they had no right to demand that she destroy her own master. She barked a cold order, commanding every single one of them to drop down. "Get on your knees and beg for mercy right now," she commanded. No waiting around, the terrified hunters did not waste a single second. They were too paralyzed with pure fear to even think about arguing with her. Bosgia knew in his gut that his ultimate doom was staring him right in the face. Yet a tiny sliver of hope remained that the powerful young cultivator might actually show some mercy. At first, Chumo assumed these desperate fools would try to fight him to the very end. But the moment he looked down at the sniveling crowd kneeling on the cold floor, his mind changed. Seeing his bitter enemies completely broken and pleading, he decided to grant them a free pass. Bosgia silently thanked the heavens that they had somehow survived this terrifying, near-death ordeal. The insane trials and overwhelming dangers had almost cost him his life, but he made it. However, the real issue was that everyone knew the young lady was the true commander here. Now she decides to play by her own twisted rules, offering them two choices. Either take your own life right now, or get eaten alive by monsters. Gu realized that ending his own life was his only real way out. He prepared to take this heavy, brutal responsibility squarely into his own hands. Pulling his companion aside, he wondered why she had suddenly taken command of everyone. She was acting like a total tyrant, throwing around commands left and right. He calmed the shaking hunters, finally agreeing to let them leave in peace. He would let them go, but only if they answered, first of all. He demanded to know exactly who sent them. After thinking for a few minutes, the man desperately wanted to name someone, anyone but his master, but he realized this could be a trap designed to put him in even greater danger. Glancing at the cultivator, he froze, having nothing to say. As a storm of tangled thoughts swirled in his head, but under no circumstances could he name Leader Lei. The young cultivator's patience was nearly exhausted. He saw that none of those present actually intended to give him direct answers, instead limiting themselves to evasions and silence. Summoning his remaining strength, the hunter finally agreed to answer, realizing there was no longer any way to avoid it. Suddenly, fresh blood began to flow from his mouth, exposing the severe damage of a hidden wound that he previously tried to suppress. Suddenly, all his subordinates lay on the cold floor, coughing up thick red fluid that quickly covered the surrounding area, confirming their critical condition. A tense atmosphere completely filled Leader Li's office, making every sound feel noticeable and keeping everyone on edge. Leader Li couldn't understand why Chumo was the master of the monster commander. This explained his incredible power. Precisely what explained his incredible strength. Even worse than that, the cultivator had shattered all expectations. Not only was he possessed by the stone, but he had also forced the heir to betray them, showing insane cunning, absolute control. Fortunately, Lysu managed to quickly activate the deadly poison, buying precious time for himself and his allies. They needed to slow this down. He had barely mentioned his brother when the man suddenly appeared in his office, as if materializing out of nowhere, completely altering the course of events. With his sheer presence, terrified by this threat, the elder immediately called security, desperate to ensure his safety and prepare for a potential attack. He felt completely exposed, so he ordered his subordinates to do all the dirty, dangerous work while he hid and watched. Every single time, Leader Li called his brother a fool, explaining that if he hadn't handled the family affairs, none of them would enjoy their high status. Hearing this, the younger brother asked what exactly he planned to do with the monster commander, trying to understand his strategy and motives to predict his next moves. The question shocked him. How could his brother have learned so much information when his own power level was way lower than his brother's? The leader reached into his desk drawer, hoping to find the gun he needed, but his hand came up completely empty. It was gone. Smiling, the young man explained he had noticed the weapon and decided to hide it just in case, protecting everyone from any unforeseen consequences. He hoped his brother wouldn't actually shoot his own flesh and blood. Trusting his sanity, he pointed the pistol at the man, demanding to know the exact number of monsters that had they arrived on Earth, desperate to hunt down some critically important information. Instead of answering, the leader tried to calm his brother down, holding back his own raw emotions to prevent reckless mistakes. That might bring disaster to both of them, but the younger brother knew that no matter how long they stalled, help was not coming. Their only choice left was to reveal why these monsters had invaded Earth. But Lichu insisted he knew absolutely nothing, claiming he was just a pawn. In a much bigger game, he could only reveal where the stone was. Yet his brother already knew that and needed no more useless explanations. Finally, the man pleaded that they were still family, even if they had different mothers. They were still brothers, bound by a shared childhood. Hanlon calmly told him that his own death would trigger an opening for the massive alliance in Chumo to start a full-scale war. This would totally break the balance of power. He also promised to do whatever it took to get those greedy old bloodsuckers to join the fight. He would lure them with promises of power. His mission was complete. Hanlon immediately called Shaju, warning him to stay far away from the kid. He ordered him to run and avoid a direct clash. Shaju was baffled. Shaju had no idea why the plan had suddenly changed, so he waited for answers. He desperately tried to understand what this new strategy meant for them. But get this, the kid's real strength was way beyond anything they ever expected. Even the mighty monster commander bowed down to him, calling the boy her master. Nobody knew his identity. Joe had to make sure Chumo had not surrendered. He wanted to protect their world. If Chumo really was an enemy, a powerhouse from the other side, they had to kill him. Hanlon could not believe his comrade wanted to take down such a beast. Fighting this cultivator was pure suicide, and they both knew it. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the air as they waited for the clash. The tension was thick enough to cut, with danger lurking in every shadow. Suddenly, a master and his young disciple sensed something was wrong. They wondered how the other hunters had died when quiet footsteps echoed. The sound put them on high alert. It was Shaju. He walked out, saying his power in the real world felt completely intact. His combat strength was just as deadly as it was inside the mystic territory. Yet the player did not feel a single shred of threat from him. He just stood there, calmly watching, talk about having absolute nerves of steel. The stranger then announced he was an active cultivator. He claimed all monsters were his mortal enemies, pointing at the girl. She was a beast commander, yet she kept calling this boy her master. Chumo quickly stepped in to clear up the entire strange misunderstanding. He explained that she randomly appeared in his room and stayed with him. Chumo was just a normal guy, but after hearing this story, the cultivator did not believe a single word. It sounded completely made up. Besides, the little monster looked weak. This was the perfect time to strike. But the player calmly stood his ground, unfazed. Chumo warned the stranger they could fight if they wanted, but otherwise he had zero time to argue because he was in a major rush to get back home. Hearing this, the stranger apologized for his behavior, suggesting they talk things out calmly. Without any hostility, openly asking what the monster's true goal on Earth was. At that moment, the host calmly turned to Erin and asked what exactly prompted her to enter the real world, what brought her here, and what she was actually pursuing. The girl remained silent for a few seconds, looking away, as if she had not understood the question at all, not rushing to answer and acting as if his words had not even reached her. Shaju wanted to take the beast for himself to extract the necessary information from her on his own, but the young man would not let him, calmly explaining that he knew exactly when his pet was lying. The argument flared up again, with the cultivator convinced that Chumo was deliberately covering for the monster. Suspecting him of hiding the truth, he pressed his accusations even harder. Unable to bear the tension, Era finally confessed that she came to the real world because a powerful monster was needed to conduct crucial negotiations with the consortium. In reality, the situation was dire because her level was extremely low, leaving her completely cut off from any updates from the rulers, lacking access to vital intelligence and resources. Suddenly, Joe lunged at them with a series of rapid and powerful attacks, aiming to gain the upper hand and force his opponents to feel the sheer force of his power, insisting this was the way to end their chat, showing his ruthless drive to force others into compliance without any more useless talk or discussion. Our hero was stunned, unable to comprehend how this guy could consider himself a true cultivator, since his behavior did not match the standards of a real powerhouse. During their earlier fight, Chumo promised Era that as long as she helped him with all of his tasks, he would personally guarantee her absolute safety against all threats and dangers. The girl reacted unexpectedly to her master's words, her eyes suddenly filling with surprise and doubt as her body tensed up involuntarily, showing she never expected those assurances. Suddenly, the system popped up with a notification. Talk about a slow burn, her affection went up by 5 points. Gradual growth of trust and connection between them. But it was still painfully obvious she did not fully trust him yet. Her gaze stayed incredibly cautious, every single gesture dripping with deep suspicion. Despite her growing fondness, preparing to clash, Joe was ready to make zero concessions, his entire body radiating pure aggression and a ruthless determination to crush his opponent in an instant. His fists clenched hard, his muscles tensing up as his fingers tightened, packing all his explosive power and resolve into a single strike. The player, however, was fully prepared to defend himself by blocking the strike, reacting instantly to the incoming assault and redirecting the brute force away to safely protect his own body. In that moment, an absolutely incredible clash unfolded before their eyes. The moment those two forces clash, a massive shockwave of blinding light rips across the battlefield. This guy is tough, backed by years of brutal experience. Realizing normal strikes won't even scratch the kid, he's forced to get creative. He's forced to look for nastier, more deceptive tactics to break him down. He unleashes his 5 elements of Chaos Fire Lotus technique, channeling everything he's got, pouring every ounce of his energy into one single, world-ending blow. With every second, the raw energy inside him spirals wildly out of control. It thrashes violently under his skin, growing until it's on the verge of exploding. This is where the real battle begins, as the tension hits its absolute peak. Both fighters lock eyes, completely focused as the heavy air turns thick with danger. You can practically feel the threat of sudden death hanging right over them. This cultivator is finally a worthy opponent for Chumo. His power is top tier, but Air watches safely from afar. She knows that if these two tear each other apart, she can easily slip away. She'll escape safely without risking her own skin. Suddenly, a notification alerts them. The user is attacked, auto-activating the damage transfer function. The system automatically redirects all incoming damage straight into his reserves. This keeps him completely safe, while his loyal pet absorbs a massive chunk instead. It splits the impact evenly, cutting down fatal injury risks. This clever trick shields him from the worst of the strike. But our hero has zero intention of quitting, telling everyone he's totally fine. He didn't even feel a single scratch, he's completely unbreakable. Furious, Joe lunges again with blinding rage in his eyes. Every single move he makes now is deadlier and more chaotic than before. The fight is escalating fast, reaching a crazy level of intensity. Every swing unleashes chaos, tearing up the ground around them. The field dissolves into a blinding storm of pure energy. The massive shockwave swallows everything in sight, completely warping reality. The kid realizes that even when he blocks, he's still taking damage. This chip damage slowly drains his spirit, forcing him to adapt his defense. He shifts tactics, pulling out an incredibly tricky maneuver. A perfect blend of sudden evasions and deceptive footwork. This completely throws his opponent off balance, but the enemy quickly charges again. Yet our hero doesn't flinch, standing perfectly still like a statue. Calm and collected, he's just waiting for the perfect counter. This absolute confidence completely catches the cultivator off guard. He pauses, forced to rethink his strategy against this stubborn wall. Chumo senses the shift in momentum and knows it's his turn to strike. He channels everything he's got to flip the script. With absolute determination, Chumo launches himself straight at the enemy. He pours every drop of spiritual energy into this strike. The sheer force of the impact instantly sends his opponent flying backwards. His body shoots several meters through the air like a rocket. A trail of pure, destructive energy rips across the dirt in his wake. Nothing remains but thick dust and shattered stones raining down everywhere. One brutal blow changed everything, the entire battlefield completely flipped. Luckily, his chaos defenses held. The 5 elements shielded Chumo. Without that protection, his body would have been utterly shattered to pieces. He would have died right there. Meanwhile, Joe counted his strikes. Exactly 8 blows landed. That should have been enough to break him. His internal power should be spiraling out of control, leaving him helpless. But the cultivator had made a fatal mistake. He underestimated Joe. His strikes lacked pure raw power, but his technique was flawless. Every single hit landed with surgical precision, aiming to cripple him. By all logic, the young cultivator should have died right there. Yet nothing happened. Joe began to seriously doubt his own monstrous strength. Suddenly, the young heiress screamed to stop, desperately trying to halt them. Her voice struggled to cut through the deafening roar of the battle. She had to stop the violence before it caused completely irreversible tragedy. The danger was suffocating. Literally, one more stray shockwave could have ended her. Her life was hanging by a thread, but watch what Joe realizes next. He realized Chumo's secret. He was transferring all damage to his pet. This damage-sharing trick kept the master healthy and ready for more. Even if Joe managed to destroy that giant monster commander summon, the master would remain completely unharmed. It made any attack totally useless. Chumo's absolute core strength couldn't be broken by beating his minions. Recognizing this harsh reality, Joe quickly retreated from the battlefield. He chose to save his own life rather than keep fighting. This sudden escape left the young cultivator completely caught off guard. Chumo paused in shock. He never expected his opponent to flee. But honestly, Chumo knew this was the best possible outcome. If they had kept fighting, he might have actually died, and he still needed her. The young heiress was absolutely vital for his grand plans and future tasks. Night quickly fell over the city. Tall skyscrapers cast long, dark shadows. Deep in those alleyways, the companions finally met, swapping quick, tense glances. The heavy stress of today's battle had left a deep mark on them. Helen demanded to know why her friend had fought such a cultivator. She was completely baffled by his bold and unseen battle strategy. In response, Joe explained that his raw physical strength was far greater. It easily surpassed the power of any ordinary thousand-year-old beast. This insane, monstrous strength made him virtually invincible in direct combat. The younger one smiled. Only a real monster can defeat a monster. With Joe on their side, they didn't need to worry about Chumo. But right then, Joe received a sudden message from his family. They had just found Liu's dead body, sending shockwaves of grief. This terrible news forced him to rethink everything that happened recently. The powerful family consortium would stop at nothing to enact absolute vengeance. They would brutally punish anyone who dared harm a descendant of their bloodline. And that prime suspect, it was none other than Chumo himself. This dark revelation sent waves of pure terror through their entire faction. An eerie, heavy silence hung in the air, bringing a sudden chill. President Lee wanted to sort out this mess himself. He decided to pay an unexpected visit to get some real answers. He needed the full picture, but right before he went inside, his men warned him. They warned him that stepping through that door was incredibly risky. The danger was unpredictable. His panicked aides practically begged him to turn around. They wanted to shield him from whatever nightmare was waiting in the shadows. But Lee refused. He ignored their pleas. He had to do this. He was absolutely determined to face Mr. Garrett in person. Stepping forward, the elderly man cautiously entered the dark room. He slowly looked around, listening closely to every tiny sound. Suddenly, his tense bodyguards turned to confront a silent employee nearby. They demanded to know if this guy really dared to block their path. Right then, boom, a sudden massive explosion ripped through the air. Dust and debris exploded everywhere, forcing everyone to cover their faces. Total chaos. Nobody had any clue what this blast actually meant. Why was Mr. Garrett acting so incredibly hostile and unpredictable? Cold dread washed over them as they tried to make sense of it. The host himself had invited them in, only to destroy his own house. Absolutely nuts, it left the surviving witnesses frozen in pure terror. The monster growled, stating he never actually welcomes guests into his home. But he offered a twisted deal: tell a funny joke and maybe he lives. Mr. Lee didn't laugh. Instead, he sadly explained his son went to Donghai City. His son wanted to meet the monster commander, but ended up dead. Now the grieving father begged this creature to help him get revenge. Intrigued, the beast asked for the name, but demanded a heavy price. It wanted the consortium's rare cross-border stone as its permanent prize. Lee nodded, confidently naming Chumo as the killer who took out the advisor. He even exposed their secret underground base, despite all recordings being wiped. Wiped clean, there was absolutely zero evidence left to back his story. And here is the kicker: hearing Chumo's name completely terrifies the beast. He instantly canceled the deal and ordered the old man to get out. Back at his base, the furious old man couldn't calm his rage. He kept ranting about how weak this young cultivator supposedly was. He claimed any seasoned warrior could crush him, but everyone knew better. Those rules simply didn't apply to Chumo. His raw talent was just absurd. After conquering the secret world, Chumo's name was on everyone's lips. The enemies had studied every scrap of information they could find on him. Underneath that kind, gentle smile lay a truly terrifying level of power. He kept his head down, hiding his true identity even when his sister got sick. But once he stepped into the new world and unlocked his abilities, unreal, in just one single day, a regular mortal became the world's strongest. He became the strongest cultivator alive. To survive the trial, he played smart. He used some pretty clever tactics. First, he took a nap to recover. Then he started playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with the beasts. He deftly dodges, completely outplaying them with quick wits. Then he eats chips. He plays the fool to grab everyone's attention. At the exact same time, he wipes out monsters in seconds. Unbelievable power. Plus, Chumo also collects plenty of fake coins. These shiny rewards end up boosting his combat power by a mile. Now he can crush enemies easily and handle any tight spot. Following his own script, our hero does not care about other cultivators. Their survival is not his problem. He focuses only on getting stronger. With this massive level of power, he only steps in to save people selectively. He is patiently playing the crowd, moving them like puppets. He pulls their emotional strings to make sure everything benefits him. After listening to the beast, an old man realizes the truth. A cultivator like Chumo is simply too dangerous to be kept alive. He is a massive threat, and the consortium will pay any price. Taking out Chumo will not be an issue, and they are ready to play dirty. Hearing this, Mr. Lee stays completely silent, hiding his face to mask his shock. He has to suppress his rising panic so no one else sees his reaction. But Garrett saw right through him. This guest only cares about cash. He does not care about his dead son or the family's deep suffering. Garrett barks out strict orders to make the hit on Chumo much easier. They need to ensure the job is totally safe for the executioners. Once the details are handed out, the group splits up to start prepping. Everyone goes their own way, getting ready for the upcoming clash. Garrett sends the rest away so he can speak with Nate alone. They need to discuss some highly sensitive matters without any outsiders. The assistant reports that the traps in the second world are ready. This means they will not have to share any of the spoils, especially since the heir is already dead, likely wiped out by Chumo. But there is a major catch they both fully understand. Once it lands on Earth, the beast retains its 1,000-year-old power. It could easily break free using its raw strength and earthly knowledge. Meanwhile, things are dead quiet over at Yudong's place. Just a single dim light flickers from her lonely window, casting eerie shadows against the empty and silent walls. Inside, her friend mentions that their pet ferret seems totally depressed, so they casually joke about cooking it up for dinner instead. He then warns her about the dangerous hunters nearby and the strange cultivators who have been creeping around. He sincerely thanks her for watching over his little sister. Meanwhile, Yudong has set up a massive hidden security grid, keeping her home safe so absolutely no uninvited strangers can enter. But a sudden loud knock on the door breaks the peace. It is just a courier delivering their long-awaited package. They both fall dead silent, turning all attention to him. But the girl is furious and completely baffled by this. She wondered how the courier found the building, bypassing all of her carefully installed safety measures in her security systems. Then the delivery guy explained that his company had recently upgraded their satellite tracking tech. Even if they lived miles away, he could still bring the hot food straight to their door. In the young lady's opinion, it was absolutely necessary to urgently beef up the building's security, keeping any outsiders from breaking inside, even with the help of advanced technology. Meanwhile, in a world crawling with high-level beasts, he was born with a pretty low rank, but thanks to her own steadily growing strength, she eventually evolved into an invincible Valkyrie. Yet, when that power completely vanished, this absolute goddess of beauty became a mere pet to the cultivator, serving as living shield to absorb all the damage for him. Because of this, she knew she absolutely had to escape, make it back alive, and complete her master's brutal mission. Suddenly, the young man walked in. He told everyone, that he bought plenty of fresh food, ready to hand it out. So everyone could relax, but first he offered a sincere apology for hurting her, while pointing out she also kept her secret identity as the beast commander hidden from him. This made the young lady extremely angry, proudly declaring that she could never be bribed with food since her principles were not up for sale. But the moment Chumo laid out a feast of absolutely mouthwatering dishes right in front of her, her fierce defense instantly crumbled. She just could not ignore that heavenly smell. Instantly her face lit up with pure joy, and her eyes stretched wide in total shock and amazement. Absolutely loving the view, the rich scent of the freshly cooked meal filled the room, bringing a cozy warmth and a sudden craving. And without holding back for even a single second, she straight up lunged at the plates. Her hands flew with lightning speed, and her eyes gleamed with raw hunger, desperate to devour every single delicious bite laid out before her. Chumo quickly realized that her absolute favorite had to be the chicken, watching her tear into the pieces with absolute delight and pure satisfaction. But suddenly snapping back to reality, she realized she had totally lost her cool, shocked by how easily she had succumbed to the irresistible power of a good meal. Deeply embarrassed, she sternly cursed her own weak instincts, feeling incredibly disappointed in her total lack of self-control. She really should have kept her guard up. A sudden wave of suspicion hit her. Did he actually spike her dinner? This thought made her incredibly defensive as she started looking for any hidden tricks. To prove there was nothing shady going on, Chumo reached out to take a piece of the chicken herself, but she immediately swatted his hand away. Still highly alert, the little beast couldn't fathom how such an incredible flavor was hidden inside simple fried meat. It felt like a delicious explosion in her mouth, bringing pure bliss. Chumo couldn't help but tease her, laughing at how she had refused to touch the food at first, and now wouldn't even share a single bite. This made her a little annoyed, though she couldn't help but smile. In response, she calmly told him she only wanted to prove she wouldn't be. She was highly cautious, deeply distrusting him and watching out for poison. She feared his tricks. Meanwhile, the host silently hoped she was genuinely happy. He wanted her to enjoy the meal, leaving her completely oblivious to his deep anxiety. While he watched her mood, the system suddenly reported her affection had risen. It was a massive jump, showing just how much their time together had touched her heart, steadily building a deeper bond between them. She trusted him more now, but the hunter's death meant absolute chaos. With the Lee consortium collapsing, their next encounter was bound to be dangerous. His sister was in jeopardy. Suddenly, Yuten ran up with some urgent news. He warned that the enemies had already launched an attack against them. They needed to move immediately to prepare their defenses and stay alive. Things just got incredibly messy. Footage of Lei was leaked all over the internet. He instantly went viral, drawing the eyes of millions of shocked users. The very next day, a lecture began, exposing the hidden secret world. It revealed everything: the strict laws, the terrifying monsters, and the dangers. But critics immediately lashed out, calling the entire setup a massive scam. They slammed them for greedy cash grabs, yet others held on to hope. They prayed that Chumo would step up and destroy the beasts for good. By morning, everything shattered. Allegations about Chumo's dark past suddenly leaked online. His reputation tanked instantly, turning him into public enemy number one. Massive search spikes followed as millions rushed to find out the truth. Everyone swarmed to watch the leaked footage, sparking an absolute internet frenzy. Before diving into the secret world, Chumo made a final move. He met Cheyenne on their office rooftop to plan their next steps. They needed to assess the danger and prepare for what lay ahead. But seconds later, tragedy struck. She fell to her death below. The entire crowd froze in absolute horror, completely helpless to stop it. Employees quickly pointed fingers, claiming Chumo had stolen massive company funds. He supposedly drained the budget, ruining their major amusement park project. Right on cue, another damning video surfaced of the young man. It showed him marching back inside to brutally threaten the company president. His sheer, terrifying power left the entire staff shaking in fear. Denied the cash, he ruthlessly slaughtered President Shu and leveled the building. He erased every single piece of evidence, leaving nothing but ruin behind. Many viewers just couldn't believe it. How could he be this ruthless? It made absolutely no sense, given his heroic past actions. The pieces didn't fit, but some people claimed they knew the truth. They revealed his sister had been deathly ill for a long time. Shockingly, it was actually President Shu who paid her heavy hospital bills. So the supposed savior, Chumo, apparently abandoned his own flesh and blood. Meanwhile, a generous stranger stepped up, only to get brutally murdered. It looked terrible. Everyone who had put their faith in the cultivator felt utterly betrayed, completely crushed by his apparent cold-hearted indifference. His alleged betrayal shattered their hope, making them doubt his entire moral character. From the looks of it, the young man was just exploiting everyone around. That viewer kindness was actually just a scheme to farm their precious fake coins. They manipulated trust for pure profit, while trashy talk shows started digging in. Hosts debated a theory that Chumo actually murdered those farmers on purpose, all to boost the stream ratings and pull in massive viewer numbers. It worked. People in the live chat quickly turned on him. Everyone called Chumo a complete scoundrel and bashed his lack of morals. Forums flooded with brutal, angry comments tearing his character apart. The cyberbullying was relentless, with online trolls dragging him through the dirt. Public opinion was thoroughly poisoned. Meanwhile, over at Mr. Lee's office, the smear campaign was a massive success, shifting the public narrative completely. People bought the lies, eagerly spreading the negative rumors online. Hate videos and posts dominated the feeds, brainwashing the masses easily. His reputation completely trashed. Even his allies were filled with doubt now. Even the invading monsters surprisingly refused the bounty to hunt Chumo down. They chose to stay neutral, showing a weirdly cautious attitude. This really messed up the elite's plans. Then an old man explained why. Those creatures kept crucial secrets hidden because they never trusted the consortium. But get this, the old man warned they were planning something huge very soon. In fact, spreading all those malicious lies about Chumo was actually their idea. They wanted to break the young cultivator by weaponizing the public against him. It was a dirty trick. Meanwhile, Tong's house was in absolute chaos. Loud arguments and panic pacing filled every single room in the building. Tension was sky-high, leaving everyone on edge about what would happen next.